drinking black tea calmly at Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 301 Conan Edogal and Emma Watson and number 039, S Secret Infiltration. After knocking on the door a few times to the rhythm of the athlete's march, Amos Diggory opened the door of the office and welcomed the two visitors into the office. Amos Diggory was the only one in the office today. He looked outside twice at the door, hung a do not disturb sign on the door, and closed the door. "I've checked, it's safe here, you can rest assured," Amos Diggory said to the two visitors. "You are a couple," Amos Diggory said with a half smile, looking at Emma and holding Conan's hand. Emma, who was nervous just now, had been holding Conan's hand all the way, but only now did she react, and hurriedly shook off the other's paw. "No, we didn't, don't talk nonsense," Conan firmly denied. Amos Diggory smiled and said nothing, stretched out his hand to signal the two of them to sit down on the sofa, and then prepared tea and snacks for them. "Do you know the route and target location? Is there anything I can do for you?" Amos Diggory asked. "The route and target are fine," Conan replied. "It's just that in case we are discovered, some aftermath work needs your cooperation." Amos Diggory nodded, and then discussed some details with the two. After a long time, Amos Diggory looked at the clock on the wall and said to Conan and the others, "The time has come." Emma prepared her wand, and Conan equipped himself with a three-piece death suit. When he entered the door just now, he was afraid of being stopped by the security check, so these things were put in the treasure bag just now. Finally, Conan and Emma put on the invisibility cloak borrowed from Harry. After Amos Diggory confirmed that there was no one outside the door, Conan and Emma under the invisibility cloak left the room. At the same time, a paper airplane used to deliver messages in the Ministry of Magic flew out of the office of the Director of the Department of International Magical Cooperation, and flew slowly towards the elevator hall. After the paper plane flew into an empty elevator, the nose of the plane flew over and hit the button on the 9th floor. The elevator quickly reached the 9th floor, and the paper airplane slowly flew out of the elevator, headed towards an office next to it, and then flew in circles in front of the office door like a golden snitch during a Quidditch match. At this time, someone opened the door of the office, and it could be seen from the door that he was the only person on duty. The duty officer coming out of the office grabbed the paper airplane in the air just as he had grabbed the quaffle on the Quidditch pitch for years. The staff on duty opened the paper airplane and read the content on it, then nodded 3 times naturally, then turned and walked into the office, and then closed the door of the office. "It's only 3 in 10 minutes, but it's enough." Conan and Emma, who came here through the cover of paper airplanes along the way, stood in front of a black door, opened the door immediately, got in quickly and closed the door immediately. Behind the black doorway is a room where everything is black except for the candle with the blue flame. Facing the 12 doors around the room, Conan and Emma could only get out from under the invisibility cloak. After marking all the doors, they searched for the target door by door. While trying the 3rd door, they found their target. The room was full of beautiful, diamond-like flashes of jumping light. Emma couldn't help but let out a wow when she saw this scene. In such a scene, Conan doesn't mind playing another song of insects flying here. But the girl next to him is not his own, and Conan doesn't want to be beaten up by his girlfriend every now and then. In a room full of clocks and tick-tocks, the two walked along looking at the wall together. They searched for the door leading to another hall. Suddenly, Emma tugged at Conan's sleeve. Conan turned his head and saw Emma pointing to a shelf against the wall, on which were several time converters they had used before. Conan desperately suppressed the temptation to exchange a time turner for a courtyard house in the 2nd ring road of the capital, swallowed his saliva for a while, and walked away without looking back. Conan could feel the magic fluctuations on the shelf, and as soon as he touched the time turner, the alarm sounded immediately. Although it can take time to resolve the alarm on the shelf, today's action time is very tight, and the gain outweighs the loss. There was only one door in the wall, and the two found it quickly. Walking through the door, the darkened room was lined with towering shelves filled with little dusty glass globes, but nothing else. The two compared the numbers on the shelves, and soon came to the 97th row of shelves. Then the two searched on the shelf and finally found a label with Harry Potter's name on it. The next is the most critical moment. "Help me out, and remind me if you don't have enough time," Conan said to Emma. Emma nodded, stepped aside and started to be vigilant. Conan began to carefully analyze the protective magic on these shelves and glass balls. 5 minutes later, Emma turned around and saw Conan's face twisted. "What's the matter? Is the protective magic very powerful?" Emma came over and asked. "Don't worry, we still have nearly 10 minutes. "No," Conan said depressedly, "the protective magic here is very deceptive. The shelves are just plain wooden shelves with no magic on them. Protective magic is only set on the glass ball. Its function is only that people who are not specific can't touch it. When anyone except Harry touches it, the alarm will be triggered. When there is magic on the glass ball, it will also trigger the alarm." It might be said Emma, the schoolmaster, turned her mind very quickly, and immediately thought of the loopholes in it. "I'm going to take it off, get ready," Conan said to Emma. Emma walked up to Conan and grabbed his shoulder. "This is so that in case of being discovered, any one of the two can lead the other away by triggering the portkey on his body." Can't help but marvel that the portkey made by Dumbledore himself can pass through the security barrier of the Ministry of Magic. In Zhang Su's view, there might be a secret door set by Lao Deng in the security measures of the Ministry of Magic. After the two were ready, Conan took out a box, opened it, and handed it to Emma behind him. Then Conan took out his wand, and used the Shen Fang cutting machine Wu Wang to cut off the whole piece of wooden board supporting the glass ball on the shelf, grabbed the wooden board with the other hand, and turned it upside down without touching the glass ball into the box. Emma, who immediately closed the box, and Conan, who used a spell to restore the plank, did not expect this step to be so simple. If such a plot is used in a novel, the readers will definitely scold the protagonist for being mentally retarded. But sometimes the simpler the method, the less people who are in the misunderstanding of thinking can't find a solution to the problem. After restoring the wooden boards on the shelf, Zhang Su immediately put another identical glass ball in place, looking as if no one had tampered with it, and then returned the same way. When passing the time converter, Zhang Su stopped. "Do you want it?" Emma asked. "If you promise me a condition, I will keep it secret for you," Emma said with a smile. Chapter 302 Conan Edogal and Emma Watson encounter Death Eaters. "What request?" Conan asked curiously. "Secret it first," Emma said with a smile. Looking at the smiling girl in front of him, Conan really wanted to tell her, "If you do this again, believe it or not, Snape, I'll give you the knife and compound potion power enhanced version. Ron's hair will turn yellow while Nep's chopping my hands is in effect. Forget it, don't make extra trouble," Conan said resolutely. "Our mission is completed, let's get out of here first." Seeing Conan's resolute words, Emma was a little disappointed, but she couldn't say anything more. Just when Emma turned around and was about to leave with Conan, she just walked a few steps. Emma suddenly felt a tightness around her waist, was held by a big hand, and then her whole body was pressed against the wall. Then Emma felt a chill, not because the clothes on her body were gone, but because she and Conan who brought her over were covered under the invisibility cloak. At this moment, the door of the time room was opened, and 3 people wearing black cloaks, black hoods and masks walked in. From the attire of these people, it can be seen that the 3 people who came in were cannon fodder just recruited by Voldemort. In the few seconds of the world where the doorway is fully open, Conan has already cast several spells inside the invisibility cloak that will aid in concealment. This is also because the light, sound and magic power in the time chamber are very messy, so that Conan's spell was not discovered by the Death Eaters who came in. The Death Eater came in and slammed the door behind him, making Conan and Hermione nervous. The first thing they were worried about was Cedric, who was on duty in the outer office instead of the original staff. Now that Death Eaters came here, Cedric's situation was not good. Moreover, their arrival must be kept from the Ministry of Magic and Voldemort at the same time. If they open the door or use the portkey to leave at this moment, it will alarm the people on both sides. At this moment, Death Eater A, who was checking the room together, said, "The person on duty outside will be fine." Death Eater B replied, "He just fell asleep, and he would wake up in an hour, and then he thought he was just sleepy and took a nap. Someone who came to change shifts has already stopped him, let him have about an hour. Coming in hours later, he'll only find his friend asleep while he's on duty." Death Eater A said again, "Then we have to wait here until night. You have brought enough food and drinks." Death Eater B checked his bag and said, "Damn, I forgot to take my drink." Death Eater A smiled and said, "I took an extra bottle of pumpkin juice and an extra bottle of sugarcane juice. Which one do you want?" Death Eater B said, "Thank you, sugarcane juice." Death Eater A took out a bottle and handed it to Death Eater B, and said, "Have you noticed that some adults hate sugarcane juice very much?" When Death Eater B took the bottle, he said, "I heard that those adults used to stay with sugarcane for a long time." Death Eater A asked in surprise, could it be that they messed up the matter, and the master punished them to plant sugarcane? Death Eater B replied, "I don't know, I also accidentally heard what other adults said. It was a long time ago." Death Eater A said again, "Remember the time of action tonight." Death Eater B said in a contemptuous tone, "The mark on the hand will tell us when tracked." Death Eater A sighed and said, "I don't know if the actions of the others will go smoothly. A while ago, a newly rescued adult and 5 brothers fell down." Death Eater B also sighed and said, "The Daily Prophet said that a student defeated them. Are all the students at Hogwarts monsters now?" Death Eater A said, "Aren't there 2 defense against the dark arts professors in Azkaban? They can train such powerful students, why didn't the master bring them out?" "Enough is enough for the 2 of you," said the Death Eater C, who hadn't spoken angrily. "We're on a mission. You 2 are talking non-stop like a character in a novel who doesn't even have a name, and you're giving away all our information. It's fine if you say it, but you dare to question the master's decision. Think about the days when we were raised like cattle and sheep in Azkaban. Think about who rescued us. Think about who worked with the adults to cure the poison, and our master didn't take them away." The 2 brought out naturally have their own reasons. Death Eater A and Death Eater B stopped talking, and quietly patrolled the time room with Death Eater C. Emma, who was sandwiched between the wall and Conan, watched the 3 Death Eaters getting closer and closer. She hugged Conan tightly in front of her nervously, trying to get physical and psychological warmth from his back. Period. Because of Voldemort's snake, Zhang Su made a layer of air conditioning outside them to avoid being detected by the snake's infrared sensor organs, so Emma is now terribly cold. Conan is now in a battle state, and he has already figured out how to deal with the enemy. When the 3 Death Eaters walked past them, he would kill them from behind, put down one of the ones in his right hand, and the watch in his left hand. Put one down, but now that Emma looks like she can't count on it, so she can only rely on the sneakers on her feet to strengthen her legs and then kick the last one to death. The power of the Reaper's 3-piece suit is not a joke. If it is used well, it may be possible to kick Harry with 1 kick, Voldemort with 1 kick, and 2 kicks to achieve a grand ending. Just when Conan imagined that he was wearing a green suit and kicking Voldemort to death, the 3 Death Eaters suddenly stopped in front of the shelf with a time converter not far from them. "Hey, that time turner is back," Death Eater C said in surprise. "You know this?" Death Eater A asked. Death Eater C nodded and said, "Yes, I came here to steal them because I heard that Hogwarts applied to borrow a time turner, and I was arrested because of it. Don't do unnecessary things." Death Eater B looked at Death Eater C, who was eager to try, and said, "If you are discovered again and destroy the Master's plan, you know what it means. It won't be discovered." Death Eater C said, "I had already taken it out at the time, but it was discovered in the elevator when I was leaving. And now the timing is right, I can crack the code on it in half an hour. Protection against magic." Death Eaters A and B looked at each other, and then Death Eater A said to Death Eater C, "In this case, we have basically finished checking here, let's check in the prophecy hall first, and then rest in it. You come in and find us when you're done." Chapter 303 Conan Edogal and Emma Watson wrap the grass and beat the rabbit. Regarding the death of their companions, the decision of Death Eaters A and B is to step aside and not participate. If things screw up, then the 2 of them cannot be held accountable. If things work out, no one will be hurt. After Death Eaters A and B turned around and walked into the Hall of Prophecy, Death Eater C stood in front of the shelf and began to fight. Conan and Emma, who were only 2 or 3 meters away from the Death Eaters, could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Conan lightly patted Emma's hands that were clasping his waist vigorously, and the other party reacted and let go of the strength in his hands, but the position of his hands did not change. Conan is also very helpless. Why is the lioness who dared to rush up to beat up a basilisk and a werewolf before, why is she so delicate today? Fortunately, the 2 of them didn't stand face to face when encountering such plots in novels, otherwise Conan would be embarrassed. He didn't think he was Liu, and Ron's hair might turn yellow today. It is said that what color is added to red will turn yellow. Death Eater C was concentrating on deciphering the magic on the shelf and the time turner, and didn't realize that there were 2 people hiding not far away. Death Eater C wasn't bragging, he just kept fiddling with the time turner shelf with his wand, and then a smile slowly appeared on his face. It has to be said that Voldemort really summoned many practical dark wizards from Azkaban. Like the one in front of me, I don't know how to fight, but he is very good at doing chicken and dog robbery. Now Conan is very worried about whether the carbon monoxide trap he set in the secret passage will be destroyed by the Death Eaters. A bubble HUD spell can be used as an oxygen tank, however, he also set up some backhands. After all, carbon monoxide can kill more than just its toxicity. After more than 20 minutes, Death Eater A suddenly walked out of the prophecy hall. When he walked up to Death Eater C, he stood aside and said, "The Master has the latest news. Someone will come to reinforce us before the operation starts tonight. From now until the operation starts, all communication is suspended." The Death Eater C, who was concentrating on deciphering the magic on the shelf, just nodded to show that he understood. Death Eater A returned to the Hall of Prophecy after seeing him nodding. After more than 10 minutes of tossing, after a flash of light, Death Eater C finally cracked the protective magic on the shelf and the time converter, took out a bag and put everything on the shelf in it. While he was loading his things, two people not far away heard him muttering words like, "I'm here to save you and I'll save you tomorrow." Conan sighed and saw that the other party was also a person with a story. After signaling the girl behind him to let go, Conan stretched out his left hand out of the invisibility cloak, and cast the stun spell on the watch at the back of Death Eater C. Just when Death Eater C was about to fall to the ground, Conan rushed out from the invisibility cloak, supported him, and then gently put him on the ground. After Conan put away the bag containing the time converter in Death Eater C's hand, he returned to the position where he was standing just now and stretched out his hand. After grabbing his hand with the other hand, Conan grabbed Emma's hand and hurried to the door of the time room. "You wait for me outside for a while," Conan said while pushing a ball of air out. After speaking, Conan turned and returned to the time chamber. Dividing line. The row of offices next to the elevator on the 9th floor of the Ministry of Magic is the place where the staff of the Department of Mysteries work, and there are people on duty every day during working hours to deal with emergencies. It's just that today's day is a bit special, with Valentine's Day added to the weekend, which caused Edward Cullen, who was supposed to be on duty today, a big headache, because his girlfriend Isabella Laswin had been looking forward to a romantic Valentine's Day. Edward Cullen's headache started when he saw this month's roster at the beginning of the month. Although he explained to Isabella Laswin and Isabella's Wang also forgave him, Isabella the disappointed look in Swan's eyes still hurt Edward Cullen's heart. Just a few days ago, when Edward Cullen, who had a drink with his friends after work, complained about the weekend duty scheduled to Cedric Diggory, Cedric Diggory offered to replace him for half a day because his girlfriend was still at Hogwarts, and it was already afternoon when she went to Hogsmeade. Overjoyed, Edward Cullen immediately stated that he would settle Cedric Diggory's account tonight, and then repeatedly promised that he would come back in time after having lunch with Isabella Laswin at noon on Valentine's Day would make good Mr. Diggory miss his appointment in the afternoon. Edward Cullen's half-day date went well, but on his way back to the Ministry of Magic, an old lady fell in front of him, claiming that Edward Cullen had hit her, and asked Edward Cullen to take her to the hospital. As a result, the accident happened near the telephone box that entered the Ministry of Magic, and the Auror on duty came here when he found someone making trouble here. The Auror cast an oblivion charm on the old man after checking that she was unharmed. So the Death Eaters who were full of who am I, where I am, and what I want to do left. When Edward Cullen returned to the office of the Department of Mysteries, he found Cedric sleeping on the table. After being shaken awake, Cedric greeted Edward Cullen in a daze, and then walked towards his father's office. When Cedric walked into the office of the director of the Department of International Magical Cooperation with "Do Not Disturb" hanging on it, two people suddenly appeared beside him. "All right?" asked Mr. Diggory. Everything went well, except that 3 Death Eaters appeared behind, and Cedric was stunned by them. Conan said, "According to those Death Eaters, they must be lurking there, and the mysterious man has a big attack tonight." Action. "They're still in the time chamber now?" asked Mr. Diggory, frowning. "It's gone now," said Conan. Conan said no more, for Mr. Diggory knew what he meant. "I must report this to Dumbledore, and to the Ministry's attention," said Diggory. Conan and Emma took their leave after resting for a while. They came to find Mr. Diggory today on the grounds of an informal meeting between diplomats from the Ministry of Magic of the two countries. Now it is almost the same time. If it drags on, the Ministry of Magic will think that there is some big event. If the Ministry of Magic takes the initiative to contact Japan, then this side is exposed. So Mr. Diggory told Cedric to send them both out of the ministry. In today's operation, Dumbledore did not tell Diggory and his son about the true identities of Conan and Emma, only that they were both members of the Order of the Phoenix. Mr. Diggory guessed a little about this too. He guessed that the two were Lupin and Tonks, or the Longbottoms. It was Cedric who got the correct answer, because he learned from Zhongchu that there are now 2 mummies lying in the school infirmary. But Cedric would not tell this matter to Death. His instinct told him that if he did, there would be no peace in Hogwarts and himself. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 304: The Origin of Conan Edogal and Emma Watson. After leaving the Ministry of Magic, Conan and Emma wandered the streets of London. The latest version of the compound decoction successfully developed by Hogwarts is very powerful, and it can last for more than 36 hours after drinking it once. Change back, so the two of them have to stay outside until the medicine wears off before returning to the Hogwarts infirmary as mummies. And the reason for their action today was that Harry Potter, who kept dreaming about snakes a while ago. Because Harry saw that Loudang and Zhang Su didn't want to see him, so he thought that they would have to see Ron and Hermione if they didn't see him, so at the end of last month, Ron and Hermione blocked Loudang in the office. "Professor, Harry, let us have a message for you. I often go to bed at night and dream that I want to go through a black door." Harry Potter. So Loudang held a hot pot in one hand, took out the professor communicator in the other hand, and called Zhang Su to the principal's office. "Loudang, take over the pot." Zhang Su, disrebound in the principal's office, Dumbledore said sincerely to Zhang Su, "Zhang, only you can help Harry now, and I don't think you want Harry to be controlled by Voldemort." Zhang Su frowned and said, "But I don't know anything about occlumency, so I can't teach him. And you also know that I can't learn occlumency, so I can't teach him after I learn it myself." Harry was also a careless brat. Zhang Su only found out yesterday that he took advantage of Snape's inattention and saw in the pensieve the memory of Harry's father humiliating Snape in front of his mother. Moreover, teaching occlumency requires legitimacy, and Zhang Su would not reveal that he knew this trick even if he was killed. Zhang Su put down his frowning hand and said to Dumbledore, "Professor, maybe we can change our thinking to solve this problem." Dumbledore nodded and said, "I would like to hear more about it." From Harry's dream, Voldemort has always wanted to enter that black door. Zhang Su asked, "Then what is behind that door? Is the weapon Voldemort wants, or other magical items? What the enemy wants is what we cannot give to the enemy. If we first take out the things behind the door, and then put a fake one in, then Voldemort's attempt will be defeated. At that time, we can tell Harry that Voldemort is working in vain, so that he doesn't have to worry anymore and can watch dreams like movies." Dumbledore thought for nearly 10 minutes, then brought up pensieve, and then plunged into it with Zhang Su. According to Ron, who was on the sidelines at the time, described to others afterwards, the appearance of Zhang Su and Loudang putting their heads into the basin together was very funny. This laid a solid foundation for Ron's tragedy later. After returning from the pensieve, Zhang Su asked Dumbledore, until Voldemort got it, he wouldn't act rashly. Dumbledore replied, "The time for Voldemort's actions can only be delayed in the near future. If he is sure that he can't get it, he will not change his main plan because of this." After sitting in a chair and thinking for a while, Zhang Su said, "I think we still have to solve this hidden danger first. Let Voldemort have a thorn in his heart, maybe it will be useful sometime. The most important thing is that Voldemort's plan brought great risks to Harry. If one day Harry is tricked and caught, our loss will be extremely heavy." Dumbledore also thought for a while, nodded and said, "You are very reasonable, but it can only be picked up by Harry himself, so we have to take the risk of taking Harry there. Just move it together with a shelf." Zhang Su imitated his grandfather and said. After Zhang Su, Ron, and Hermione ate all the snacks on the desk, Dumbledore came back from his contemplation. "If those shelves are still the same as before, this method is feasible," Dumbledore said with a spirit. The last time Dumbledore went to the Hall of Prophecy was many years ago, and he didn't know whether there had been any strengthening of defense measures over the years. However, Dumbledore thinks that even if the defense of that place is strengthened, it will not be strengthened much. After all, the things inside are tasteless to most wizards. Next, Dumbledore said to Zhang Su, "I'll leave this to you, Zhang." Zhang Su was stunned for a moment and then asked, Why is it that there are many people in my Order of the Phoenix who work in the Ministry of Magic? Dumbledore replied, since Arthur's accident, Fudge has been keeping an eye on many staff members of the Ministry of Magic, including members of the Order of the Phoenix. Zhang was right when he thought about it. It was a very strange thing for Mr. Weasley to appear there that night. It is not surprising that Fudge would think that it was Dumbledore who played tricks. But you also know my identity. Zhang spread his hands and said, if something happens to me in the Ministry of Magic, it will be a serious diplomatic dispute. Dumbledore said confidently, we can use the latest Polyjuice potion, and the portkey I made can take you directly from the Ministry of Magic to a safe place. After Zhang thought for a while, he finally agreed to Dumbledore. So the two lifted the hot pot together. Zhang quickly worked out the script of this plan, and Dumbledore was responsible for perfecting the details and arranging personnel and materials. It is very simple to use compound decoction to fabricate a false identity for himself. Zhang has a lot of background details in his mind, but after the fact, there is no character template for this person to use. He had prepared a lot of hair for the compound decoction many years ago, and the plan was to use it in case he needed to escape. After some selection, Zhang used the hair of a man named Du Kang who raised mice in a pharmaceutical factory in Japan. And if something goes wrong, the British Ministry of Magic can go to Japan to fight. Later, Laudang said that he needed someone to take care of him. After some careful consideration, he appointed Hermione to go with Zhang as an interpreter. Zhang guessed that Laudang was afraid that he would take the opportunity to find some good things. I have to say that Laudang is quite accurate in judging people. So Zhang had no choice but to take out a piece of hair that little Emma accidentally dropped when drawing a Christmas card and was caught in the Christmas card. After drinking Polyjuice potion and a big shot of aging potion, Hermione has become Emma's 20-year-old appearance, and now no one can recognize her. The informant from the Ministry of Magic is naturally coordinated by Laudang, so Zhang doesn't have to worry. And it was the unlucky Lupin and Black who were posing as their mummies in the school infirmary. Ever since, a not too complicated operation was launched. In order to avoid leaking secrets, no one except a few parties knew about this matter, and what different people knew was very limited after all. It was a place that both the Ministry of Magic and Voldemort were staring at, and any news was bound to be bad news. Chapter 305 Conan Edogal and Emma Watson and number 039, S. Valentine and number 039, S. Day. Ootsa sir, buy a bouquet of roses for your girlfriend. The money you pay for the roses will go to WWF. On the streets of London, a 6-year-old blonde lolly walked up to Conan and Emma. She held a rose in one hand and an animagus in the other. The box with a logo of the giant panda Zixi, which was borrowed from the London Zoo 35 years ago, is looking at them expectantly. It can be seen that this little lolly is using the weekend to engage in public welfare activities, and such activities are usually organized by the school not far away. There was an adult who was supposed to be the teacher leading the team, obviously watching every move of the flower sellers around. Otherwise, someone would have invited little Lolita to see the real panda. It's just that the two young men standing in front of Laurie are a little embarrassed now. Their embarrassment was not because this lolly regarded them as a couple. It was strange that a young man and a woman were not regarded as a couple when they were doing activities together today. When they went to lunch just now, they got a couple discount price from the store. They were embarrassed because they knew the little lolly in front of them. A certain girl just used this lolly hair and a bunch of magic potions to turn her into a 20-year-old look this morning and then did bad things. As a result, Li Jiui met Li Kui in the afternoon. After Conan stuffed a 50-pound note into the cash box, took the rose from the genuine little Emma's hand, and then ran off with the big Emma. Not far away, Conan handed the rose in his hand to Emma. Happy Valentine's Day. Can't you be more serious? Emma complained, you are not giving roses to your girlfriend on Valentine's Day, but you are passing pepper to others at the dinner table. I'm afraid that if I'm serious, I'll be beaten up when I go back. Conan replied. I won't tell Professor Scarlet. Emma replied seriously. You know who I'm talking about. Conan said helplessly. After the two argued for a while, Conan asked, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we still have nearly 30 hours before we can go back. How do you plan to spend this time? What do you think? Emma asked. How about we find a hotel to stay in? I don't care, Conan said, as long as there is a computer in the room. 30 hours is not enough for me to play games. You just have the heart to leave the girl alone and play games by yourself when there are beautiful girls in the room. Emma said angrily. Be patient. Conan replied. Although the alias is the god of death, it does not mean that he is going to die. Because the winter vacation of domestic universities starts in these 2 days, it is not guaranteed that Furin will return to Europe in advance after the exam. Then let's just go there, Emma said suddenly. Dividing line at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Hogsmeade was immersed in an atmosphere of love, and walking on the street could smell the strong smell of dog food. Fleur, who had just rushed to Hogsmeade directly after getting off the plane, was standing in front of the villa and opening the door with a key. Originally, she would not rush over here, but when a Daily Prophet was mailed to her some time ago, she changed her mind. Leaving the matter of Zhang being a hero saving the beauty aside, she worried about the Death Eaters attacking Hogsmeade at night for a long time, so as soon as she finished her exams, she flew directly to London by plane rushed over. Just think of it as a surprise for him. Fu Rong, who pushed open the door, said to herself. As soon as she walked into the hall, Fu Rong was startled because she smelled an unfamiliar perfume. Frowning, Fleur took out her wand, walked up to the second floor following the scent of the perfume, and stopped in front of a guest room. There is no soundproof spell in the guest room, so standing in front of the door, you can faintly hear the blushing panting from the room. Fu Rong took 3 deep breaths to force herself to calm down, then kicked open the door and rushed in. As if the mute button had been pressed, the room suddenly fell into dead silence. 2 seconds later, a burst of male and female voices came out of the room. Dividing line the Forest of Dean near Gloucestershire in the Cotswolds, England, is the oldest oak forest in England. The forest divides the UK into England and Wales. This used to be the hunting ground of the British royal family, and the prototype of the forest where the elves live in the Lord of the Rings movies. When he reached the Forest of Dean, Conan's legs were trembling. Although the night bus is faster, it is very convenient, Emma said to Conan, who was looking pale. It's not driving too fast, it's flying too low, Conan replied. Because Conan felt that camping was more reliable than 2 people going to a hotel to open a room, he said that the 2 had hid in the wild, so he agreed to Emma's suggestion to go camping in the Forest of Dean. Conan originally wanted to fly over, but Emma found a place to recruit a night bus. Let's find a campsite, it's getting late, Emma said after looking at the sky. Wait for a while, I'll go to the sky to see. After speaking, Conan turned into a falcon and flew into the air, and returned to the ground after turning around in the air. There is a suitable place about a mile after crossing a small hill. The terrain is flat, there is a water source nearby, and there are no traces of roads around. Conan said. The Forest of Dean is a very popular tourist destination for the British. In the forest, there are not only footpaths stepped on by tourists, but also stone roads dug out, and even abandoned railways. Conan, who didn't want to be disturbed, found a place away from these roads. It was still quite cold in the forest in mid-February. Emma, who wanted to pick some mushrooms along the way, returned disappointed after searching for a while. Do you know how to tell if a mushroom is poisonous? Emma asked. I know, Conan replied, just break off a small piece of mushroom and let your companion eat it, and then carefully observe your companion's reaction. Just when Emma with a black thread wanted to hit someone, the 2 came to the camp. There is a small lake with an area of about 200 to 300 square meters. A stream more than 1 meter wide flows into the lake here. There is a flat grassland between the woods and the lake. Just as Conan was pouring out camping supplies from the treasure bag, Emma suddenly said, From now on, we will not use magic during camping. I'm fine, I can survive in the forest with only a knife, Conan said. I'm fine, I go camping in this forest with my family every summer vacation. Emma also said. Conan didn't object after hearing what Emma said, and said, Then let's go collect some firewood and see if we can find some food by the way. It hasn't rained recently, and the 2 picked up a lot of dry firewood, branches and dried moss along the lake. And NBSP, at this time, the sunset glow has quietly climbed into the sky, and the woodland began to turn golden. This is also the time when the beasts go to the small lake to drink water, and in the distance from the 2 people holding the wood, a wild boar that seems to have just grown up is drinking water by the lake. Do you eat wild boar? Conan turned his head and asked Emma, Otherwise we will eat fish tonight. Is it okay to eat both? Emma asked with a smile. No problem. Conan replied while taking out a pair of bows and arrows. When the sunset covered the sky, the 2 walked back to the campsite with a bundle of firewood on their backs. Conan also carried 2 cleaned and skinned wild boar legs in his hands. I didn't expect you to be able to shoot arrows, and you could shoot wild boars to death. Emma sighed looking at the boar leg in Conan's hand. You can get 2 books by shooting wild boars in Guangxi. Conan replied solemnly. Really? Emma was frightened this time. Guess. Conan replied. After putting down the firewood and registering the pork legs, Conan said to Emma, there is enough wood, you burn 2 fires first. Tonight we will put up the tent in the place where the fires have been burned, so that it will be warm when we sleep. I'm going to get some fish. After Conan finished speaking, he handed a lighter to Emma and walked towards the lake. Just now he saw a place that seemed to have a lot of fish. Just as Emma was lighting up the bonfire, she suddenly heard a muffled boom from the lake in the distance. Not long after, Conan came back with a few clean fish. Because the principal didn't allow me to fish in the school lake, I forgot to bring my fishing gear, so I used a grenade. Conan said a little embarrassedly. Emma gave him an annoyed look. No matter where it is, frying fish is strictly prohibited. It's just that Conan didn't say that he dug a deep pit with magic just now and buried the corpses of Death Eaters A, B, and C who sneaked into the Ministry of Magic today. At this time, the sky began to darken, and the two began to get busy preparing roasted wild boar legs and cooking fish soup. After eating the golden roasted wild boar legs dripping with oil and the fragrant fish soup, Leon and the two sat by the campfire and chatted while drinking a cup of hot tea. I don't know what the Death Eaters are talking about tonight's action. Professor Dumbledore told us not to worry, just act according to the original plan and don't go back. I don't know what arrangements he made. Conan said, staring at the bonfire. Emma next to her said a little angrily, didn't you agree to promise me not to mention those things when we were still at Egal? Conan and Emma Watson? Professor Dumbledore's decision must be his fault. Idea. After finishing speaking, Emma leaned softly on Conan's shoulder and asked, do you believe in fate? Conan wanted to move to the side, but he couldn't get rid of him. Since when did you believe in fate? Conan asked strangely, didn't you always disbelieve in divination? The more I get to know you, the more I realize that fate really does exist. Emma said, I heard you say that if there is fate, you will choke it by the throat, and I find that you seem to be doing that. I don't remember how many people have asked Conan this question. Conan can only answer, who knows? The previous elder of the Centaur tribe once told me that a new planet appeared in the sky 16 years ago. Then it hid behind Mars, which represents war, a few years ago, so this new planet brings war. Is it the planet called Mischievous Ghost? I read it in a book. You were all born 16 years ago. Does it mean that you brought war? Emma asked nervously. Emma was born in 1979, so she said you instead of we. Although Emma's divination class has not been taken for a long time, some prophecies can still be interpreted. Moreover, the new planet called Naughty Ghost made a lot of noise in the astronomy circle, and it was recorded in many books. It seems so from astrology, a new planet reveals our destiny to us. Conan said lightly, but Professor Sinista told me that the new planet is actually a space station launched by the former Soviet Union. What fate do you think the space station launched by the Muggles can reveal to us? Emma, who heard about this for the first time, also didn't know what to say for a while, but she didn't blurt out forbidden things like someone. Then what about the divination you did at number 12 Grimwald Place that day? Did it reveal your destiny? Emma asked suddenly. In fact, effective divination can really see a little vision of the future across the long river of history. Conan said, it's just that sometimes these visions are very vague, and some tangible evidence is needed to assist in reasoning. So you saw that I wasn't it? It was Hermione and Ron. Emma asked hesitantly. Conan doesn't know how to answer at this time. Can it be said that I watched it on the fast broadcast? Conan could only nod his head in line with the idea that he could only continue to fool the afternoon after fooling others. Do you want me to choke Fate's throat too? Emma said and leaned her head on Conan's shoulder. Conan's face began to cramp, and it would be better to choke Ron's throat than to choke Fate's throat. You said that if history could be repeated, and Hermione asked Zhang to be her boyfriend, would Zhang agree? Emma said in a low voice. Damn it! Conan shouted in surprise in his heart, what the hell is this? You are going to take the route of rebirth actually, Conan was interrupted before he finished speaking. I'm asking about Hermione Granger and Zhang Su, not Edgar Conan and Emma Watson. Emma said, Hermione and Emma are different, from the outside to the inside. Since the other party wants to deceive himself and others, Conan can only follow this rhythm. Conan scratched the back of his head and said, don't you think there are too many similarities between the two of them? They are both smart and calm, and at the same time they are somewhat proud and love to express themselves. Aren't they similar in character? Emma turned her head to look at Conan and asked, "It's because of their similar personalities that they match well. I treat you like a brother, but you actually want to fuck me," Conan thought to himself. People with similar personalities can be friends, partners or brothers, but they cannot live together as partners. Because partners need to complement each other and tolerate each other in personality, if there are too many similarities, it is inevitable that there will be big or small conflicts. Contradictions. Conan said, "In fact, Zhang has always regarded Hermione as a brother." The air was suddenly quiet for a few minutes. "Perhaps you are right. In Hermione's mind, Zhang is more important as a friend and a professor," Emma said after sighing. "But at least we are Conan Earl and Emma Watson at this moment, aren't we?" Emma said with a sudden smile. Nanny Cyrillic lettered ere one night passed, not much to say. Chapter 306 Bloodstained Valentine and number 039, S-Day Night. There is not much to say during the day. The pair in the Forest of Dean had just finished the last roasted wild boar leg for dinner just as the effect of the Polyjuice Potion's extra long version on them wore off. "It's time to go back," Zhang Su said. "Wait a minute," said Hermione, taking out her wand and a bottle. "Please wait a moment to hide this bottle in the forest, and never let anyone find it." After Hermione finished speaking, she raised her wand and pointed it at her head, and then a kind of silver with a little blue in it, which was neither gas something that wasn't liquid either, was ripped out of her head by the wand and put into a bottle. Hermione pulled a memory out of her mind and put it in a bottle, which meant that this memory disappeared from her mind forever and could never be recalled again. "When did you learn this spell?" Zhang Su asked curiously. Hermione looked at the bottle in her hand, and replied a little confusedly, "I just learned from Professor Dumbledore 2 nights ago. I am afraid that if they are caught by the Death Eaters, they will see the 2 days from my memory." "Things that happened. What happened these 2 days?" Zhang Su asked intentionally. "I can't remember anything from the time I was sent to the school infirmary until I had dinner just now." Hermione stared at the bottle and said, "Take it and hide it." After Hermione finished speaking, she handed the bottle to Zhang Su. Zhang Su tied the bottle and the 2 grenades together with transparent glue, walked to the lake, pulled the string and threw them into the lake. After another loud bang, Zhang Su came back. "Now those memories have been blown into dust, and they will disappear without a trace in a short time, so that we won't be afraid of being discovered by others," Zhang Su said to Hermione. Hermione nodded after being stunned for a while, and then BIU with Zhang Su and returned to the headmaster's office at Hogwarts. Dumbledore was sitting at the desk. When he saw Zhang Su and Hermione coming back, he hurriedly stood up and said to them before they could speak, "Hurry up, there's no time to explain. Come follow me to the school infirmary." Zhang Su and Hermione were taken to the school infirmary by Dumbledore using the principal's privilege of parading in the castle. Lupin and Blake, who had been the mummy for 2 days, immediately jumped out of bed to give up the hospital bed, while Zhang Su and Hermione were immediately asked by Madame Pomfrey to take off their coats, tie them up as mummies, and let them lie down on the hospital bed immediately. "Superior, remember that you two just woke up after drinking the medicine." After Dumbledore ordered the 2 who were being drugged by Madame Pomfrey, he left with Lupin and Black, who were still mummies. Zhang Su and Hermione, who had just eaten and drunk and were full of energy, immediately became dizzy after drinking Madame Pomfrey's potion, and their heads still ached, as if they had just returned from 2 days and 2 nights. Waking up from a coma. At this moment, Zhang Su heard Madame Pomfrey say to the people outside, "They have woken up, and you only have 5 minutes to visit the sick." Immediately afterwards, there was a sound of footsteps at the door of the ward, and then Zhang Su was hid and dribbled into someone. "It's good to wake up, it's good to wake up. Don't worry, I'll avenge you." Fu Rong hugged Zhang Mummy with a crying voice. The moment Fu Rong appeared in front of his eyes, Zhang Su was stunned. After hearing what Fu Rong said, Zhang Su was stunned x2. Turning his head to the left, Zhang Su was dazed x3 when he saw a yellow-haired man standing beside Hermione's bed with a back that looked like Ron, but with a bandage on his head. Turning his head to the right again, Zhang Su was dazed x4 when he saw a red-haired mummy on the empty hospital bed. Zhang Su can be sure that at this time, even if he doesn't drink Madame Pomfrey's dizzy medicine, he can play the role of a patient who just woke up from a coma and his head is still a little dazed. So Zhang Su simply gave up thinking, nestled in Fu Rong's arms and listened carefully to what happened in the past 2 days. 10 minutes later, Madame Pomfrey drove away all the visitors in the ward. Before leaving, Fu Rong said that she would come to visit her tomorrow. It took a few more minutes for Zhang Su to sort out the ins and outs of the matter. Zhang Su shouted to the new red-haired mummy, "Percy, are you still alive?" "I'm dead," Percy said in a very helpless tone. "Sorry, I didn't know this would happen, so I owe you a favor," Zhang Su said to Percy. Percy didn't speak, but turned his face to the side where Zhang Su couldn't be seen. What happened was very simple. Furin met Zhang Chu and Cedric in the villa yesterday afternoon. After a while, Zhang Chu told Furin that Zhang Su was injured by Weasley and was hospitalized. It turned out that it was not clear which Weasley's Fleur immediately rushed to Hogsmeade and beat up Ron Weasley, who had just bought candy from Honeydukes, and Ron didn't know what curse. After Madame Pomfrey's treatment, the new hair that grew back was yellow. Later, under the explanation of Harry and Ginny, who came to hear the news, Fleur realized that she had beaten the wrong person, and then beat Percy Weasley, who had just arrived after hearing the news, into the school infirmary. Later, Fu Rong asked to visit Zhang Su in the Hogwarts infirmary, which shocked Dumbledore. If Fu Rong was allowed to enter the school infirmary, the matter would definitely be exposed, so the stern Madame Pomfrey blocked her. He glanced at Zhang Su from afar outside the ward. Fu Rong didn't leave until Madame Pomfrey promised that Kenny Zhang could wake up the next night. Early the next morning, Fu Rong came to the door of the ward waiting for Zhang Su to wake up. Zhang Su felt extremely guilty now. He did not expect to make Furin worry. Just then, Dumbledore came into the ward. "The mission has been successfully completed," Zhang Su said while handing the box containing the prophecy ball to Dumbledore. "What did the Death Eaters do last night?" Zhang Su asked. Dumbledore's expression darkened immediately after receiving the box, and he handed Zhang Su a copy of the Daily Prophet. Zhang Su took the newspaper and saw that the first page was full of photos of the dark mark raised in different places. Below the photo is a headline full of news, and there is only one sentence below the headline for the detailed report. See which page. Those titles also look shocking. Number 1, the Ministry of Magic was attacked by Death Eaters last night, and the Department of Mysteries is suspected to have been stolen. Second, the St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Injuries and Injuries was attacked by Death Eaters last night, and the scene was in chaos. On the third day, many shops in Diagon Alley were burned down, causing serious economic losses. Then there are 8 news stories about the XX family being attacked by Death Eaters and causing heavy casualties. The dark mark rose in 11 places overnight. It is estimated that Fudge has not slept since last night. Dumbledore didn't seem to want to say more, but just let Zhang Su take a good rest, and approved him and Hermione to ask for half a day off tomorrow morning. But Zhang Su stood up from the bed, and while untying the bandages on his body, he said to Professor Dumbledore, "Professor, I'm going to Hogsmeade tonight. I don't want Furin to worry so much. Please give me a curse that looks like it's ready to recover." Dumbledore looked at Zhang Su, took out his wand and said, "Okay, then bear with it." Avada Kedavra Chapter 307 Detective Furin. I want to eat meat. No, patients should eat more vegetables. Separation line. Last night, when Zhang Su returned to Hogsmeade's villa with the injury caused by Dumbledore, and quietly touched Fu Rong's bed, Fu Rong, who was startled in her sleep, kicked at an unknown object feet, and as a result, the injury of an unknown object aggravated a little. Later, Zhang Su hugged Furin and comforted her by saying that he just passed out for a while and didn't drink the special medicine he had prepared in time. That's why he was hurt so badly, and it will be fine when he takes the medicine himself for a while tomorrow morning up. As a result, Zhang Su fell asleep with his arms around Fu Rong while he was talking. The potion that Madame Pomfrey gave him in the ward was supposed to make him dizzy, and naturally it also had the effect of promoting sleep. Seeing Zhang Su, who started to snore, Fu Rong sighed deeply, then laid Zhang Su on his back and helped him take off his robe and put it away. After dealing with Zhang Su, Fu Rong moved her nose and used a little spell to enhance the sense of smell that she had just learned not long ago, and as expected, she smelled the faint smell of barbecue again. Then Furin leaned down and put her nose close to Zhang Su. After some searching that would have excited Zhang Su if it was normal, she finally determined that the smell came from Zhang Su's hands. Sitting beside Zhang Su, Fu Rong poked his forehead, then his nose, then his face, then his carotid artery, and finally sighed. Then lay down beside him and fell asleep. Since Zhang Su could make himself really hurt by pretending to be hurt, and he was worried that he would come over overnight to comfort him after hurting himself, so Fu Rong decided not to expose his tricks. As early as the first time when Furin went to the school doctor's office to visit Zhang Mummy, she found something suspicious. The treasure bag that had been inseparable from Zhang Su was not put together with his robe. No matter how you say it, the treasure bag has a certain thickness. Even if it is suppressed by the robe, it can be seen. Then Fu Rong went to Zhang Su's professor's dormitory to look for it, but she didn't find the treasure bag in the dormitory. Later, I got rid of Zhang Chu and searched around in the dormitory of Yingyan, but still found nothing. At this time, Fu Rong began to suspect that the mummy in the school doctor's room was not Zhang Su. After a series of major incidents from last night broke out in the Daily Prophet the next morning, Fu Rong felt that the mummy in the school infirmary had 9 layers of fakes. Based on Furin's understanding of Zhang Su, it is impossible for Zhang Su not to be involved in such a big event. After Madame Pomfrey still resolutely refused to let herself go in to see the mummy, Fu Rong could already conclude that the mummy was definitely not Zhang Su. This was a trick played by Zhang Su and Dumbledore. Although Furin knew that Zhang Su was not injured and sent to the school infirmary, but such a serious incident happened last night, Furin was still very worried that he would be hurt last night, so she waited anxiously at the door of the school infirmary because she knew that if Zhang Su came back, he would first be transformed into a mummy on the hospital bed. As a result, we waited until night. Although Zhang Su's previous injury was already guessed to be fake, no one can guarantee that his current injury is real, so when she first entered the ward, Fu Rong's worry was real. Furin, who was holding Mummy Zhang, quietly used a spell to enhance the sense of smell, but she didn't smell it on Mummy Zhang. It smelled like medicine, but it smelled a little like barbecue. And this time, traces of a treasure bag were seen on his robe on the bedside table. From this point of view, there is only one truth, that is, the person in front of him is Zhang Su, who has just returned. The deception plan designed by Zhang Su and Dumbledore was considered a success, but no one expected to kill Fu Rong, who knew Zhang Su very well. Fortunately, Furin guessed that there must be something wrong behind this, so she didn't reveal it on the spot. Fu Rong didn't think that Zhang Su used the power of Hogwarts so aggressively to make her leave Hogwarts just to have a barbecue outside, so she kept this question in her heart. After Zhang Su returned to the villa overnight, Fu Rong found that there was a faint smell of medicine on his body compared to when he was in the school infirmary, and then she was sure that these injuries were caused after she left. Fu Rong can still see that a small injury is used to cover up the huge danger behind her, but Zhang Su is unwilling to tell the truth, and Fu Rong will not press him. As for Hermione, who was injured together, Fu Rong could also guess that she should have gone out with Zhang Su. Fu Rong was deeply impressed by this witch, whom Zhang Su called the Big Moving Library. Although Furin was surprised that Hermione was not the old lady Scarlet who acted with Zhang Su this time, but she didn't go too deep into it. Miss Carrot is safe. As for the two brothers Percy and Ron who were wronged by her, they would beat them up anyway, so let's think of it as making Zhang Su's play more realistic. Separation line. After eating a full stomach of vegetable salad and 2 steamed buns, Zhang Su sat on the sofa in the living room without eating any meat. The bandages on his upper body had all been untied, exposing a large wound on his skin that seemed to have peeled off. Dumbledore's craftsmanship is still good. Although he called Avada Kedavra and released the spell, it only looked scary after hitting him, but it didn't hurt at all. Under Fu Rong's watchful eyes, Zhang Su drank a cup of special potion that had just been prepared. From Furin's current perspective, it can be seen that this cup of potion is a real healing potion. It took only about 10 minutes after drinking the potion, Zhang Su's injuries healed, and new skin grew out without any visible scars. Fu Rong sat next to Zhang Su, poked the place where the wound was just now with her finger, and found that it was the same as no wound. Zhang Su hugged Furin and put it on his lap. "Feel sorry." Zhang Su took a deep breath and said to Fu Rong in his arms, "As long as you're safe and sound, that's more important than anything else." Fu Rong leaned in Zhang Su's arms, pressed her face against his chest and said. For a moment, the only sounds in the ears of the two people were the sound of their breathing and heartbeat. After an unknown amount of time, Zhang Su broke the tranquility and said to Fu Rong, "You can go back after lunch." After several minutes, Furin gave a soft hum. After a while, Fu Rong suddenly raised her head, looked at Zhang Su and asked, "Why did you walk with those ladies that night?" Chapter 308 Auror Office Director Visits. After Zhang Su sent Fu Rong to the Eurostar, he returned to Hogwarts from London BIU. It was also because Zhang Su had just helped Lao Deng do a lot of black work, Otherwise Loudang would not have allowed him to run around like this. I have to say that Loudang still treats his own people very preferentially. After Zhang Su returned to Hogwarts, he entered the classroom 10 seconds before the bell rang. The class was math, and Professor Scarlet was disappointed not to be able to deduct a student's mark for being late. Mathematics class was also taught by the two colleges. In order not to be too busy, Mr. Zhang separated the Lion College and the Snake College when arranging the class, and the Lion College was taught together with the Eagle College. Zhang, who was sitting in the last row, glanced at the students present and found that a certain yellow head had turned back to red. Today's class was about curves and equations. After Zhang Su put the textbook on the table, he took out today's Daily Prophet. Only now did he have time to read today's newspaper. He is not like other students, who can no longer understand the content after 5 minutes of distraction in class. The headline on the front page of the newspaper was that Minister of Magic, Fudge, appealed to the masses to remain calm. The minister said that the series of cases that happened the day before yesterday were just the last dying struggle of a small group of Death Eaters, not that the rumored mysterious person had returned. The Ministry of Magic had confidence and ability to wipe out the remnants of these Death Eaters, and return the masses to a stable and peaceful living environment. Seeing Fuji still struggling so hard, Zhang Su couldn't help grinning sneeringly. At this moment, there was a sound of breaking through the air. Zhang Su tilted his head subconsciously. A piece of chalk flew past his temple, and then hit the wall behind Zhang Su with a slap. Putting down the hand that threw the chalk, Professor Scarlet asked, "Why is Mr. Zhang laughing?" Zhang Su, who was named and stood up, couldn't be said to be laughing at the Minister of Magic's behavior. He could only show his quick wit and say, "I just thought of an equation x2x 2132 equals 1, and its graph is very interesting." Professor Scarlet thought for a while, then sneered, "This is a trick I have played countless times before." Then Scarlet raised his wand from the podium and waved it, and the newspaper on Zhang Su's desk floated up. 5 points from Ravenclaw, 3 days of confinement, come to my office at 8 o'clock tonight. As soon as Professor Scarlet finished speaking, the newspaper in front of Zhang Su turned into a ball of fire. After finishing a math class, Professor Zhang came to the Professor of Muggle Studies and began to prepare for today's class. Less than a minute before the start of the class, a wizard with long tea-brown hair and bushy eyebrows, although a little limp, walked into the classroom with a dashing stride. "Master," this was Zhang Su's first reaction to him. Rufus Scrimgeour, head of the Auror office at the Ministry of Magic. Zhang Su quickly recognized the person coming. After Rufus Scrimgeour entered the classroom, he just found a seat in the corner of the last row and sat down, then nodded to Zhang Su, signaling him to leave him alone. Zhang Su didn't care about him going to class as usual, but other students were not so calm. Although the students didn't dare to whisper to each other, all kinds of speculations sprouted in their hearts like weeds. Rufus Scrimgeour, the director of the Auror office of the Ministry of Magic, thought of a whole lot of reasons for arresting Professor Zhang himself. But the students who wanted to watch the fun were destined to be disappointed. After class, Professor Zhang walked up to his seat and sat next to Scrimgeour, talking and laughing happily. Scrimgeour's calm and prestige has a lot of influence on ordinary people, but it has little influence on Zhang Su. Scrimgeour took out a stack of photos and handed them to Zhang Su, then asked, "Do you know the man in the photos, Mr. Zhang?" Zhang Su took the photos calmly, and then carefully looked at them one by one. This is a photo gif of Conan Edegal when he was undergoing security check in front of the security checkpoint of the Ministry of Magic. After a stack of photos gif is connected, all the actions of Conan in front of the security desk are restored. Is he suspicious of himself, or is he only asking because he is from the East? Zhang Su thought while looking at the photo. This person should be Japanese, but I don't know him. Zhang Su flipped through the photos and said, "You're sure it's Japanese?" Scrimgeour asked. Zhang Su took out 2 photos and put them on the table in front of Scrimgeour. One was a photo of Conan handing his wand to the wizard on duty at the security check desk, and the second was Conan saying goodbye to the wizard after the security check. Photo. Zhang Su pointed to these 2 photos and said to Scrimgeour, "In several countries in East Asia, people from different countries have certain behaviors that can distinguish them." When he handed the wand to the inspecting wizard, and when he said goodbye, there were traces of bending and bowing naturally, especially the angles of the 2 bows were almost the same, which shows that this person's bow is a habitual movements. You can compare wizards in several other countries, this kind of movement appears the most in Japanese. In addition, The angles of bowing and bending are different when they face people of different status. The higher the status of the bowing object, the greater the angle of bending. Scrimgeour looked seriously at the two photos with bowing movements on the desktop, and soon realized that what Zhang Su just said was true. Zhang Su is not afraid that he can see the flaws in the photos. After all, he played the role of Japanese many times back then. Even authentic Japanese can be fooled by him. You must know that it is not easy to pretend to be a person from another country and communicate with people from that country. Sometimes language problems can make people reveal their flaws during the self-defense counterattack on the southwest border. The Vietnamese pronunciation of handling your guns and don't kill is Nuobu Song Kongai, but many soldiers left out the soft boo when they shouted, and the result became worse. It was because the guns were shot at the opposite side more fiercely, and it was only when the prisoners were interrogated that they realized that Nuobu Song Kongai meant it without killing. Scrimgeour asked Zhang Su about Conan's wand again, and Zhang Su was sure that there was nothing wrong with the introduction about the wand. After Zhang Su got the information he wanted, Scrimgeour left. When Zhang Su came to the cafeteria, the dinner had just appeared on the dining table. Zhang Su was sitting in his usual position, and when he took a piece of lamb chops from the plate in front of him, he turned his head and wanted to talk to Zhang Chu, but when Zhang Chu saw Zhang Su turned his head, he immediately slipped away with the plate the other side of the table. Chapter 309 During the Cold War. The reason why Zhang Chu ran away. Zhang Su only heard Fu Rong vaguely mention it. Zhang Su only knew that the scene was embarrassing at the time, but he didn't know exactly how embarrassing it was. It's just Zhang Su's reaction to Zhang Chu now. It's worth going to Cedric with a bottle of wine and a bottle of Veritaserum on the weekend. During the meal, Zhang Su listened to what the students were talking about as usual. Ignore the useless information that Professor Weasley is injured in class today, and some students hope that Miss Delacour, who beat Professor Weasley into the school infirmary, will replace Professor Weasley as the Professor of Defense against the Dark Arts. Students, what they talked about most was what happened on Valentine's Day night. Today's students basically believe that Voldemort has returned, and many students also mention that their own families have also accepted this view. It's just that Fudge, the Minister of Magic, is still holding on in the media, assuring readers that it's all the personal actions of Death Eaters because in the past, Death Eaters would only kill opponents and innocent people, but this time Death Eaters not only kill but also rob money. What Zhang Su was most concerned about was the reaction of the students in the Snake Academy. After all, the students in the Snake Academy were inextricably linked with the Death Eaters. It would not be surprising that the entire academy would follow Voldemort. The information Zhang Su got was that since last year, the students of the Snake Academy have been very conflicted. It is not easy for them to stand in line. Now both sides are doubting their position. But after a series of family attacks on Valentine's Day night, rumors came out today that many families began to have doubts about the Death Eaters' policy. As for the Malfoy trio, there was nothing strange about their recent behavior. When it's time to bully the younger students, he bullies the younger students, and when it's time to fight with a Harry trio, he fights with a Harry trio. After dinner, Zhang Su came to Professor Scarlet's office honestly. Since the end of the holiday a month ago, Zhang Su borrowed a gun from Scarlet by violent means to take the Ring of Nivaligan for his own safekeeping, and the two have fallen into Cold War. After all, Zhang Su used this ring to trap the Death Eaters in Azkaban, and now the holder of this ring is naturally the enemy of the Death Eaters. He took the blame for himself, so Zhang Su had to wear the ring with him during this time. Scarlet knew the reason why Zhang Su asked her for the ring, but knowing that didn't mean she agreed with Zhang Su's idea. After the communication was fruitless, Zhang launched a surprise attack on Scarlet and snatched away the ring that she hung on her chest as a pendant. Today was the first time Zhang Su came to her office after the Cold War between the two started. Sitting at the desk, Professor Scarlet, who was drinking tea and reading Sophie's World with gusto, saw Zhang Su coming in, and casually pointed to a table not far from the desk. Said, "The homework will be corrected by you, and you can leave after correcting." After Professor Scarlet finished speaking, he continued to drink tea and read books on his own. The office suddenly fell into a strange silence, except for the occasional sound of flipping books and the rustle of the quill writing on the parchment. There was no sound for a long time. The two of them were like two children competing with each other. Whoever speaks first loses the game. I don't know how long it took, but after correcting a student's homework from the Lion Academy, Zhang Su found that what was written on the next piece of parchment was not today's homework, but a letter with exquisite lace. Zhang Su read it and found that it was a love letter written by someone to Scarlet. It is estimated that someone asked his godson to help him get caught in the homework. Professor Zhang has encountered love letters in his homework quite often in the past 2 years, but he treats these love letters as compositions to correct, and then sends them back together with normal homework. And NBSP, it even happened that students sent the love letter to Professor Zhang for correction in order not to be embarrassing when sending the love letter. When encountering such students, Professor Zhang's method is to make public comments directly after mosaicing the names and before class. So Professor Zhang, regardless of what Professor Scarlet did before, imitated Snape's handwriting and tone and corrected this love letter as a composition. I found a lot of big and small problems such as smoothness and lace asymmetry. After correcting this composition, Professor Zhang found out that this composition was put at the end, which means that today's homework has been corrected. I'm done, Zhang Su said to Professor Scarlet. Professor Scarlet was still looking down at the book, but he just waved his hand to indicate that the other party could leave. Until Zhang Su left the office, the two of them only spoke a few words from beginning to end. On the second night, neither of them said a word. Professor Scarlet was still sitting there reading a book. Zhang Su sat directly at the desk to correct his homework, and left after correcting his homework. On the third night, things changed a bit. Zhang Su looked at the time after finishing his homework. It was already February 1996, the first day of the Lunar New Year in China. So Zhang Su bowed his hands to Scarlet and said, "Happy New Year, Guangzai Fa Ke, I wish you a Happy New Year." A red envelope that had been prepared on Scarlet's desktop flew in front of Zhang Su. After receiving the red envelope, Zhang Su thanked him and left, ending the 3-day confinement. Zhang Su, who was walking back to his office, squeezed the red envelope. The coin inside should be a copper coin. The time has just passed by, and now the students' attention is focused on the Hogwarts school that has just been established and will represent Hogwarts to Boxburtons to participate in the 3-school Quidditch competition during the Easter holiday. On the team, the students paid so much attention to the matter that few people even discussed the Quidditch match between the Badger Yard and the Snake Yard on the weekend. Zhang Su came to Hogsmeade during the Quidditch battle between the Badger Yard and the Snake Yard on Saturday, and someone asked him to come out for a talk today. The safest place in Hogsmeade today is the Interesting Cafe. The customers in the cafe are all Aurors who are resting in the Auror office of the Ministry of Magic today. Starting from Bloody Valentine's Day, the Aurors in the Auror office started working overtime, working at least 10 hours a day, and it wasn't until this weekend that the office director, Rufus Scrimgeour, gave them a day off on the weekend. So those single Aurors came to relax in this coffee shop with a good reputation in the office. Just when the Aurors were playing games and trying to attract the attention of the 3 waiters on the first floor with witty words, a sudden silence from the door swept the entire cafe. The appearance of Rufus Scrimgeour made these Aurors immediately quiet down and looked at him quietly. During this period of time, they were often scolded by this leader. "What are you looking at me for?" Scrimgeour said to the Aurors, waving his hand, "Keep playing with you." Zhang Su, who was feeding Ginger with dried fish, was relieved when he heard the Aurors, and someone said in a low voice, "I thought you were here to arrest us and go back to work overtime." The cafe quickly resumed the excitement just now. Scrimgeour sat opposite Zhang Su and said to him, "Sorry, Mr. Zhang. I'm late." "It's okay, sometimes you can't help yourself when you do this kind of work." Zhang Su smiled and said to Scrimgeour, "So, do you want to get a Gwent card first?" Chapter 310 Doubt. After playing 5 games of Gwent, Zhang Su didn't win any of them, so Zhang Su had to help Scrimgeour pay the bill 5 times in the coffee shop. When Scrimgeour announced that the Aurors in the shop today were all due to him, and the Aurors were cheering for it, Zhang Su was thinking about whether Hood and the others would accept it if they paid the bill with dried fish. $1 worth of dried fish should be worth £1. It has to be said that Scrimgeour looks fierce like a lion, but he still has a good grasp of the management of his subordinates. After the trouble is over, the next step is to talk about business. First, Scrimgeour confirmed to Zhang Su a question that has been asked the most during this period of time: is the mysterious man really back? Everyone who asked this question expected to get a negative answer from Zhang Su, but Zhang Su's answers were all yes. But today Zhang Su did not answer Scrimgeour directly, but imitated the voice of Minister of Magic Fudge and said, "The mysterious man was defeated more than 10 years ago and he will never come back. In the past 2 years, we have increased a blow to the Dark Wizard. Now it's just a handful of Death Eaters who feel their end is coming under our blow, and they are dying. The Ministry of Magic is confident and capable, and will catch them all before Christmas. From now on, peace is guaranteed for a whole generation. Now I ask everyone to go back and sleep peacefully in your bed." Although Zhang Su said the same words as Fudge, but with his funny expression, Scrimgeour knew that what the other party said was ironic even if he hadn't seen this emoji. After receiving Zhang Su's reply, Scrimgeour was silent for a long time. It was not until the ginger sitting on Zhang Su's lap was full of dried fish and left and replaced it with fish cakes that Scrimgeour recovered from his contemplation. Zhang Su thought that Scrimgeour asked him out today not just to confirm whether Voldemort had really returned, but he couldn't figure out what the other party could talk to him about for a while. Scrimgeour was not the kind who seemed to meet Zhang Su. Colluder. Mr. Zhang, do you know the Hikmedia family, the Phantomhine family and the Lawrence family? Scrimgeour asked openly. Zhang Su curled his lips and looked at Scrimgeour speechlessly. Zhang Su replied, "The Hikmedia family is mainly engaged in the sale of magic items, including some dangerous magic items. The Phantomhine family is mainly engaged in the sales of mineral magic raw materials. The Lawrence family focuses on the business of magical raw materials of magical animals and plants. I regret what happened to the three families. There were quite a few people who knew these three families before, and they monopolized the Western European market for Eastern magic raw materials 5 years ago. To put it simply, they purchase special magic raw materials and some magic items from the Far East from places such as India, Japan, and Southeast Asia, and then sell them in Europe after multiplying the purchase price by more than 10 times, or even nearly 100 times. Most of the magical animals and plants that Zhang Su has never eaten or seen that are named Huaxia in the West are named after them. Snape regarded the kaba produced in Japan as Mongolian, and it was their pot. However, since under Zhang Su's needlework, magical raw materials and items from the East were sold at the price of Chinese cabbage in Europe through Hogwarts and Boksplittons, the business of these three families has been difficult. And since last week's Blooded Valentine's Night, the names of these three families have also appeared in the Daily Prophet every day, because the three of them were almost wiped out by Death Eaters on Valentine's Day night. The reason why the family was not completely wiped out was because there were still people in their family who were studying at Hogwarts, so they escaped the catastrophe. However, this is all information on the surface, and little is known about the secret activities, but the two people present here are aware of it. Do you have any other views on what happened to these three families, Mr. Zhang? Scrimgeour asked, staring into Zhang Su's eyes. What else can I think? Zhang Su said while scratching the fish cake lying on his leg. You don't think I ordered the Death Eaters to attack their family residence, Mr. Scrimgeour? Scrimgeour continued to stare at Zhang Su and said, we learned the truth about the werewolf army's attack on Hogsmeade during the interrogation of Fenrir Greyback. No wonder Scrimgeour suspected that Zhang Su was playing tricks behind the scenes. They were behind the werewolves besieging Hogsmeade back then, and their goal was Zhang Su's life. However, Zhang Su's identity is a bit special, and it is not easy to invite him to the Ministry of Magic for tea without conclusive evidence, so Scrimgeour can only ask Zhang Su out in private to make a side view. Although Scrimgeour's guess was reliable, Zhang Su would not admit such a thing. Zhang Su said while scratching Fish Cake's belly, I already knew about this, and they wanted to get rid of me with the help of werewolves. But later, under the mediation of Professor Dumbledore, the three of them showed enough sincerity, and I didn't suffer too much harm, so I don't pursue them anymore for the sake of Professor Dumbledore gone. The amount of compensation proposed by the three families to Zhang Su was so generous that it is said that even Lucius Malfoy, who as the middleman, was shocked. Some people even planned to compensate Zhang Su for their daughter who was studying at Hogwarts. As a result, Zhang Su gave up such compensation and transferred all the compensation to Hogwarts. So Zhang Su and Dumbledore sang a double read, and turned the compensation into all the shares of several magic raw material processing workshops. Want a golden egg? Everyone knows the reason for wanting a hen that can lay golden eggs. Since then, after Hogwarts has mastered all the shares of these processing workshops, it is no longer just an agent of raw materials, but also started a business of processing raw materials. An industry university research base for potion science and herbal medicine has been preliminarily established. This is why Zhang Su can have so many privileges in Hogwarts, and other professors, especially Professor McGonagall, who is always fair and strict, have no objection. Drinking water does not forget the well-digger. Zhang Su turned the fish cake over and continued to scratch its head and back while saying, actually, It's not surprising that mysterious people will find them. This is also the conclusion I came to after this week's research. It can explain why the other 5 families are also being targeted by mysterious people. Scrimgeour's eyes staring at Zhang Su suddenly widened. Zhang Su learned from the Civil War in the Order of the Phoenix and the Auror that the Ministry of Magic has yet to determine the criteria for selecting targets for the Death Eaters. The Ministry of Magic has no idea why the Death Eaters chose them. Zhang Su took out 8 brand new, thick notebooks and placed them in front of Scrimgeour. Scrimgeour casually picked up the notebook with Lawrence written on the top cover, opened it and looked at it carefully. Opening the notebook, there are clippings of reports on the Lawrence family in newspapers and magazines, such as the Daily Prophet over the past few years. These clippings are pasted in the notebook in chronological order. Scrimgeour didn't find anything strange in it when he first read it, but when he turned to the last few pages, it seemed as if he had suddenly discovered a new world, and he read the clippings of the last few pages over and over again several times. Then he picked up other basic notebooks one after another, and directly turned to the last few pages to carefully read the newspaper clippings there. Scrimgeour has been in Auror for so many years, and even became the director of the Auror office, so his IQ is naturally not bad. When the case is at the end of the day, sometimes after some details that are not noticed at ordinary times are noticed, it is easy to find the bright spots. The last parts of these clippings all have one thing in common. They all mention explicitly or implicitly that these families have been financially supporting the construction of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry recently. The fact that the workshops of the Hookmedia family, the Phantomhane family, and the Lawrence family have all become Hogwarts school-run workshops cannot be hidden from others, but the public does not know what is going on under the table. It's just a deal. As for the other 5 families who were attacked by Death Eaters on Blooded Valentine's Night, the Whitehorn family who founded the Nimbus Racing Broom Company, the Allerton family who established the Sweeping Broom Company, and the Comet the Cage family of the Trading Company, the Horton family, and the Flett family, one of the shareholders of the Fleet and Buck Company, all sell broomsticks. They plan to use Hogwarts as a breakthrough to recapture the British broomsticks. The market, so it is also throwing money at Hogwarts. So if Scrimgeour suspects something happened to these families, he will only suspect the Weasley family. After all, Scrimgeour still knows some dark things. The 2 children of the Weasley family almost died at their hands. Period. Unbeknownst to Scrimgeour, much of the money was surreptitiously transferred to the Wheeleyes as compensation for not being held accountable for their attempted assassination of the twins. As for the collusion between the Death Eaters and the Weasley family, I believe that both the Ministry of Magic and the Death Eaters will feel that such a thing will definitely not happen. Scrimgeour had read these reports before, but he didn't think about it. After all, the British magic community has not experienced economic wars for so many years. The 2 opposing sides are directly destroying each other's vitality, and there is no precedent for destroying the opponent's pocketbook. Period. And now, after Zhang Su's tweaking, Scrimgeour quickly discovered the commonality of these 8 families, and they all started giving Hogwarts a lot of gold coins recently. Scrimgeour put himself in the position of Voldemort to consider this issue. Giving money to Hogwarts is equivalent to giving money to Dumbledore. If the person who gave money to Dumbledore is not disposed of, is it still saved for Easter? Period. After getting Zhang Su's permission, Scrimgeour put away the 8 notebooks. As for whether Scrimgeour will find out that Zhang Su colluded with a certain Western reporter to deliberately publish suggestive and inductive news, Zhang Su is still very relieved of Rita Skeeter's methods. As a benchmark figure among media people, she only needs to hint easily, and a bunch of new reporters who are distressed because they can't find news will naturally follow the direction she hinted to find news. I owe you a favor. Scrimgeour put away the notebook and said to Zhang Su, I must hurry back to the ministry now. Just when Scrimgeour stood up, Zhang Su suddenly said to him in a low voice, Do you want to be a minister, Mr. Scrimgeour? An excellent Auror must be a powerful wizard, but to be the leader of the Aurors, one needs not only strength, but also a delicate heart. After hearing Zhang Su's words, Scrimgeour didn't reply, but just stood condescendingly and stared at Zhang Su like a lion. Zhang Su just smiled and said, With more and more Death Eaters' actions, the mysterious man will definitely appear in front of the public again in the near future. At this time, Mr. Fudge must no longer sit in this position. When the time comes, everyone definitely hopes someone strong will be in the ministerial position. Scrimgeour didn't speak, and after staring at Zhang Su for a while, he turned around and left, while Zhang Su sat on his seat and continued to feed the fish cakes with dried fish. Scrimgeour didn't refute Zhang Su on the spot, and Zhang Su felt that he must have moved up. With a delicious big cake of the Minister of Magic ahead, I believe Scrimgeour will be more purposeful in his next work. Now Voldemort's power is stronger than in the plot, so it is still necessary to recruit more powerful factions. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 311 Why did N number 039, T. Voldemort kill him? After the leader left, the Aurors in the coffee shop resumed their excitement. During the period, two new Aurors who had previously brushed basilisks with Zhang Su came over to chat with Zhang Su. After returning the fish cake to Hood and asking her to record today's account first, Zhang Su left the coffee shop. After leaving the coffee shop, Zhang Su returned to his villa. After entering the door, he immediately activated all the defensive magic in the villa, then went straight to the study room, and continued to activate all the defensive magic in the study room. Now Zhang Su can be sure that even if Voldemort and Dumbledore join forces, they will not be able to break into the study within 10 minutes, and 10 minutes is enough for Zhang Su to destroy the computer in front of him. Sitting in front of the desk, Zhang Su took out a laptop from the bookcase, plugged in an external power bank, and pressed the power button. After entering several passwords and unlocking with an external fingerprint lock, Zhang Su opened a file that could silence Dumbledore and make Voldemort cry. Beauty Sexy Picture Campus Girls Game Encyclopedia Gunky Strategic Roman Total War 1.6 Gas 7 Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Fine Typesetting. Zhang Su sat in the study for an entire afternoon, and it was already time for dinner when he returned to Hogwarts. After dinner, Zhang Su returned to his professor's dormitory, went to the balcony to make a pot of tea, and then lay on the rattan chair to sort out the parts of the plot that could be used as reference at present. According to the description in the story, Voldemort began to confirm that his Horcrux, Hufflepuff's gold cup, was stolen by Harry and his friends after they sneaked into Lestrange's vault and stole it. After checking the safety of the Horcruxes, it turned out that the Horcruxes in Gaunt's old house and the cave had disappeared, so he gathered all his men and went to Hogwarts, kicking off the prelude to the final battle. And Zhang Su also used this as a reference to dispose of all the Horcruxes that could be obtained in advance, in order to lure the snake out of the hole while Dumbledore was still alive and kicking. At that time, it is no problem for Dumbledore to ask Zhang Su, "It was you who brought Voldemort here." As a result, Marveligant's ring has been hammered in Zhang Su's hands, and Bellatrix Lestrange should tell Voldemort that Hufflepuff's gold cup may have been taken by Zhang Su. As for the cave where Slytherin's locket was placed, I don't know if Voldemort has checked it. As for the Ravenclaw's diadem in the Room of Requirement, Zhang Su has long accepted it is a family heirloom. Moreover, these things were all opened by the leader of the Dementors. If the leader of the Dementors knew what the takeaway Zhang Su gave him was and told Voldemort, Voldemort would probably go crazy by now. So if Voldemort knew what Zhang Su had done all these years, he would definitely come to kill Zhang Su desperately. However, Zhang Su always found it strange that Voldemort didn't cause trouble for him because he had the ancestral ring in his hand. It stands to reason that when Voldemort knew that his Horcrux fell into the hands of others, he should have been extremely nervous and furious, instead of standing still like he is now. As the saying goes, if something goes wrong, there will be a monster. Voldemort's behavior had to make Zhang Su vigilant. Zhang Su lay on the rattan chair and thought about it, from Voldemort's character to the power in his hands, but he still had no idea. Since he had no idea, he went to eat late at night, so Zhang Su left the dormitory and went to eat. Hall. Just as Zhang Su was preparing a plate of pasta mixed with sunshine mushroom beef sauce, three red-haired figures sat across from him. Fred said to Zhang Su very seriously, "We have a question for you, Zhang." Then George asked in the same serious tone. Ginny was the first to open the secret room where the basilisk was held back then. "Do you know about that?" Ron looked at Zhang Su solemnly. Zhang Su looked at the expressions of the three of them and said, "We had doubts about this at the time." At this moment, another red-haired head suddenly sat on the seat by the table. Zhang Su looked at the four red-haired heads in front of him in bewilderment, and then at the pasta in front of him. Today he just came for a late-night snack, so why did he encounter so many things? The twins and Ron looked at Percy, who suddenly appeared. Fred and George didn't say anything, but Ron said to him, We didn't violate the school rules, Professor Weasley. Percy glared at Ron, and asked a little angrily and anxiously, "What's wrong with Ginny? I thought you didn't care about your sister anymore." Ron said to Percy in a contemptuous tone, "After all, you didn't visit Dad when he was in the hospital, let alone your sister. My stupid brother, is your head just for display?" Percy said in a tone of resentment, "You really don't deserve my care, you're too stupid." Suction degree Cyrillic letter pedigree. Just when Percy and Ron fell in love with each other, Zhang Su took the opportunity to finish the plate of noodles in front of him as quickly as possible. When the next group of people were talking, they were drooling, and they couldn't eat the noodles. In the end, it was Zhang Su who interrupted their meaningless conversation. Zhang Su said to Ron and the others, "Percy also knows about this, so let him talk about it." Percy ignored Ron, and said to Fred and George, "At that time, we suspected that Ginny was injured when she entered the secret room for the first time, but there was insufficient evidence later, so we just suspected." Fred continued Percy's words, "At Christmas, Harry saw you-know-who's snake bite our dad." George went on to say, "Harry later suspected that he was controlled by the mysterious man, and he attacked our father." Ron continued, "Harry has been worried about this since then. Not long ago, Ginny told Harry that she had been controlled by the mysterious man's notebook, so she was sure that Harry was not controlled by the mysterious man. People are in control. And then Ginny got rid of the notebook that was controlling her, and then Lockhart got it, and in the end Lockhart got it," Percy said after a final thought. Zhang Su didn't care about these red-headed guys communicating there. The matter of Ginny being controlled by the notebook gave him an inspiration. If he followed this inspiration, he might be able to figure out what the hell Voldemort was doing. Period. So Zhang Su said goodbye to the Wheel-Eyes who were discussing taking Ginny to Dumbledore for inspection, and then left the kitchen. What he concealed back then will be exposed if it is exposed, and it will not cause any trouble if it is revealed now. Chapter 312 Malfoy shaving his head to kill a black? Zhang Su left the kitchen, and encountered a scene that left him dumbfounded on the stairs leading to the hall on the first floor. A student with a prefect badge was going down the stairs and met Zhang Su face to face. But Zhang Su couldn't remember when a shiny bald had appeared among the prefects this year. The light in the stairs was not good, so Zhang Su didn't recognize him at the first time. But after a round of screening by elimination method, Zhang Su quickly knew who the other party was. "Malfoy, why did you change your hairstyle?" Zhang Su asked strangely. And the bare-headed Malfoy didn't speak, just trotted past Zhang Su and ran downstairs with his head down. According to Education Order No. Students are prohibited from running in corridors and stairs, and 1 point will be deducted for Slytherin. Zhang Su saw Malfoy, who was about to turn into a corridor, staggered and almost fell. Zhang Su shook his head and walked towards the hall. There's a, % chance that this guy had another conflict with Harry and suffered a big loss. As soon as he walked into the hall, Zhang Su suddenly thought of something, and then made a calculation. It is the first month of the lunar calendar in China. Malfoy's mother, Narcissa Malfoy, is Sirius Black's cousin. So, if Malfoy shaved his head in the first month, Sirius Black would be in danger. As Zhang Su walked upstairs, he thought, maybe Lao Ma asked Xiao Ma to shave his head. Zhang Su walked in the corridors and stairs of Hogwarts Castle, thinking along the inspiration just now. After thinking for a long time, Zhang Su thought that Voldemort might be waiting for his soul to be corroded by his Horcrux. In other words, Voldemort believed that Zhang Su's soul had been corroded by Horcruxes. Voldemort had reason to think that no one but himself knew that he had pretended to have multiple Horcruxes, and that no one else would have guessed that he had made a Horcrux, nor what items he had used to make it. From this, it can be speculated that Voldemort is taking a gamble, thinking that Zhang Su cannot recognize the Horcrux, and the carrier of the Horcrux is a valuable antique ring that can be worn on the body, so Zhang Su is likely to often put the Horcrux wearing it on the body. Zhang Su will be controlled by the Horcrux sooner or later. And Hufflepuff's gold cup is just transferred from one vault in Gringotts to another vault, and may even be transferred to a vault thousands of miles away. As long as the gold cup is not found and destroyed, it doesn't matter whose vault it is currently in, as long as it wins in the end, it can be taken back. However, what Voldemort didn't expect was that Dumbledore was too familiar with him, and found his Horcrux through various clues. What Voldemort didn't expect was that Zhang, an odd number, had been eyeing his Horcruxes early in the morning. When Zhang Su got the Ravenclaw crown many years ago, he began to try his best to purify the Horcruxes. Period. So at this moment, Voldemort probably doesn't know that all the Horcruxes he made have now been disposed of as lunchboxes. Voldemort knew that Zhang Su was a dark wizard, but a teenage wizard who was so dark that he could compete with him. Voldemort couldn't figure it out with normal thinking. If Voldemort asked Malfoy and the Death Eaters who planted sugarcane in Zhang Su's hometown, then Voldemort would only get information from the old horse and the others that there had been harmony there for many years, only when Zhang Su was very young. There was a battle over the border. So no matter how much Voldemort thought, he couldn't figure out how Zhang Su killed so many people. Then there is only one truth for Zhang Su to become a dark wizard, and that is that he has been corrupted by Horcruxes. Now that Zhang Su has been corrupted, it makes sense for Voldemort to wait for a while to let Zhang Su sink deeper and deeper. Zhang Su thought for a long time before he thought of this plausible reason. Only a few people in Hogwarts knew that he was a dark wizard, so should he further disclose this news to Voldemort, making Voldemort think that he has become darker and darker? Zhang Su couldn't help thinking. At this moment, Zhang Su suddenly thought of another person who had been in contact with Horcruxes for a long time and was also tempted by Horcruxes. Although the Horcrux had been purified, it was not impossible that the corroded effect still remained. Thinking of this, Zhang Su couldn't help becoming nervous. Zhang Su walked to a door and said to the door, "Crabrobuns." Walking into the dormitory, Zhang Su saw no one in the living room, and the lights in the study were also dark. I went to the bedroom to check, and there was no one in the bedroom or on the balcony. When Zhang Su walked out of the bedroom and came to the living room in doubt, the door of the dormitory opened suddenly. Zhang Su and Scarlet standing in front of the door were both stunned for a moment. Zhang Su walked over immediately, took Scarlet's hand and walked into the dormitory and said, "There is no time to explain, hurry up, follow me to the bedroom." Scarlet, who didn't react at first, was dragged into the dormitory by Zhang Su. After walking 2 steps, she realized that she stopped and asked loudly, "What the hell are you doing?" "I want to help you check your body," Zhang Su said. After Zhang Su finished speaking, he saw that Scarlet could not be pulled, so he simply turned around and walked over to hug her horizontally, closed the door with his feet, and walked directly to the bedroom. But Zhang Su didn't notice a person standing outside the door who had been petrified by the scene in front of him. After entering the bedroom, Zhang Su laid Scarlet flat on the bed, and then began to take out things from the treasure bag. "Relax," Zhang Su said to Scarlet, who was lying on the bed and glaring at him. After speaking, Zhang Su took out a white box and put it on the bedside table. "How can you make me relax like this?" Scarlet said angrily. "If you want to rob money or rob sex, you should make it clear first. I just suddenly thought of a very serious problem, so I will check your body for you," Zhang Su said while looking for something in the box. Finally, Zhang Su took out a jade plate with a diameter of about, centimeters from the box, with dense patterns carved on it. Holding the jade plate, Zhang Su turned around to look at Scarlet, only to see that Scarlet had already taken off his robe and threw it at the end of the bed. "Would you like me to continue taking it off? Let you check it carefully," Scarlet said angrily. Only then did Zhang Su come to his senses, put the jade plate on the head of the bed, and then covered Scarlet tightly with a quilt, leaving only one head outside. "Sorry, I was too impatient at the moment," Zhang Su said softly to Scarlet. "I suspect that the Horcrux ring still has an influence on you." After Zhang Su finished speaking, he picked up the jade plate again and lifted it above Scarlet's face, and said to her, "Wait, you can concentrate on the plate." Scarlet sighed and said, "Oh, forget it, it's up to you." Zhang Su put the jade plate on Scarlet's face, then let go. Immediately afterwards, the lines on the jade plate gradually brightened. Due to the different technology trees of the East and the West, both sides have their own strengths. For example, the East is ahead of the West in detecting mana and soul, while the West is much ahead of the East in research on time. It's just that Zhang Su is complaining in his heart. The jade plate for detecting soul and mana has been invented for hundreds of years, and its various functions have been gradually improved, but the shape has not changed for hundreds of years. That is to say, people who have been tested for hundreds of years have been lying down so that the center of the jade plate is aligned with the center of the eyebrows and placed on the face, and then a glowing plate is placed on the face. Fortunately, this is not a routine inspection, otherwise the manufacturer would have been beaten to death by the customer. After about 2 minutes, not only white lines appeared on the jade plate, but also many thin black lines appeared. When the lines on the jade plate were stable, Zhang Su fiddled with them a few times to save the lines before taking the jade plate down. "Look for yourself," Zhang Su handed the jade plate to Scarlet. Scarlet took the jade plate and looked at it carefully. Although it was too detailed to decipher, the black lines that divided it into two parts, one big and one small, could still be seen. It's a little more than what I checked a few years ago, Scarlet said while sitting on the bed, looking at the jade plate. She has seen the large group of black lines representing the curse on her body many times, and now she is so helpless that she doesn't feel much, but the newly appeared black line, the size of a fingernail, made her nervous. Forget it, don't care about it, Scarlet said after handing the jade plate back to Zhang Su. Anyway, I'm already ruined, and it doesn't matter if I get trampled on. After Zhang Su took the jade plate away and put it away, he said, I thought you were going to tell me not to take pity on me because I am a broken flower. Roland seems to be okay recently. Go back to the hospital to have a look after the summer vacation. Zhang Su said, it's not good to keep this thing in your head after all. Understood. Scarletella lifted the quilt and said after covering herself, I'm going to sleep, you can kneel down. The Cold War between the two for many days finally came to an end with today's incident. Zhang Su flew out of the dormitory gate. Just when Zhang Su pulled himself off the wall of the corridor, he finally found a person standing in front of the door of Scarlet's dormitory. I think you should explain what happened just now, Mr. Zhang, Professor McGonagall said. Chapter 313 Magic Wand, Cyrillic letter deck. Professor Scarlet is sick here, and if he dies, he will be afraid. Zhang Su pointed to his head and said to Professor McGonagall. He didn't expect to run into Scarlet taking Professor McGonagall back to the dormitory for a chat today, and he was embarrassed. Although Professor McGonagall is also a member of the Order of the Phoenix, but Zhang Su didn't know whether Laodang had told her about some things, so he used an ambiguous answer to fool today's matter. As for whether Professor McGonagall believes it or not, Zhang Su doesn't know. The next day, Sunday, was a rare good weather. It is rare to have such a windless sunny day in February. Zhang Su took a copy of the Dragon and Tiger Mountain examination formation and a bag of fried chestnuts to a stone table by the lake to do the questions. Since the introduction of mathematical knowledge such as plane Cartesian coordinate system, three-dimensional coordinate system, plane geometry and solid geometry into the research of array method, the layout and research of array method have entered a new era. Take the formation I as the origin, set true north as the positive direction of the y-axis. Calculate the coordinate positions of each key point in the formation, calculate the algebraic equation of the movement path of each key point when the formation changes, and analyze its connection with the formation effect. This is a question that Zhang Su is currently working on. This is also a compulsory question type in the college entrance examination over the years, but the z-axis is often added in the college entrance examination. Similar to the 8 or golden lock formation, which has a total of 8 points of Schumann, Shangman, Humanman, Duman, Jingman, Diethman, Shockman, and opening gates. The formation is complex and often appears as the finale of the college entrance examination. Period. For example, in last year's college entrance examination question, the eye of the 8 or golden lock array was set on a 30-meter high hill, surrounded by mounds ranging from 10 to 20 meters. The first small question asks students to calculate the gate, Shangman, Hertman, Duman, Jingman, Deadman, Jingman, and Cayman coordinates. The test point of this small question is to calculate the position coordinates of the 8 gates in the three-dimensional space. The 8 gates must be placed on the ground when setting up the formation. It is impossible to dig a hole or build a platform to put it on. Moreover, the position of the 8 gates does not need to be directly projected on the ground by projecting their two-dimensional coordinates, and the impact of the terrain height difference must also be taken into account. While Zhang Su was burying his head in the calculations, someone sat across from Zhang Su and picked up the sugar-fried chestnuts on the table to eat, while watching Zhang Su answering the questions with great interest. After Zhang Su finished the problem, he raised his head and greeted the person opposite him. Hello, Professor Flitwick. I have something to tell you today. Professor Flitwick said to Zhang Su, the owls are ready. I suggest you use the ones you bought from Ollivander during the practical exam. Because the ones I usually use are not registered with the Ministry of Magic, and I am afraid that the Wizarding Examinations Authority will not allow the use of ones that are not registered with the Ministry of Magic in the exam. Hearing this, Zhang Su's complexion became extremely bad. Seeing Zhang Su's bitter face, Professor Flitwick was taken aback. Could it be that you haven't bought a wand from Ollivander all this time? Professor Flitwick asked. If you haven't, I can approve you to ask for leave in the afternoon to go to Diagon Alley to buy a wand. At this moment, there are countless alpacas galloping in Zhang Su's heart. All along, Zhang Su never told anyone that he bought a wand from Ollivander, and Ollivander never mentioned to anyone that he sold a wand to Zhang Su. In addition, when Zhang Su visited Ollivander's wand shop for the first and last time so far, there was no one else in the shop. Therefore, the fact that Zhang Su bought the wand from Ollivander became a secret that only the two of them knew. Enter the dividing line of memory. It was a noon many years ago. Zhang Su, who came to Diagon Alley for the first time, started his shopping trip after exchanging currency from Gringotts. After spending some time buying textbooks, crucibles, balances and other school supplies, Zhang Su strolled to Ollivander's wand shop. Looking at the dilapidated signboard above the store door, Zhang Su thought for a while, then walked into the store with the idea of buying souvenirs. As the most famous monopoly in the British wizarding world, the wand shop's display is so low-key that it is very sorry for its social status. But perhaps it was this low profile that allowed the Ollivander family to stand tall in the British magic world for so many years. Good afternoon, sir. Ollivander walked up to Zhang Su and greeted him. Are you here to buy a wand? Ollivander, who is said to have, wands and information about their buyers in his head, appeared. Zhang Su looked curiously at the first celebrity he met after he came to Diagon Alley. Aside from magic wands, do you sell other things here? Zhang Su asked curiously. Sometimes some wizards will come to me to buy some urgently needed raw materials that I can't buy in the market for a while, and I will use when making wands. Ollivander said to Zhang Su, but I never sold them that, only wands in this shop. Zhang Su didn't know what to say for a while. Are you a freshman at Hogwarts this year, sir? Ollivander asked. Yes. Zhang Su replied, I'm going to study at Hogwarts, and I'm here to buy a wand today. Which hand do you prefer? Ollivander asked after pulling out his famous automatic measuring tape. After an all-round measurement, Ollivander took several long boxes from the shelf and put them in front of Zhang Su. Chestnut wand of unicorn hair, 13 inches. 3 successive heads of the Wizengamot have had chestnut wands of unicorn hair. As a result, just as Zhang Su picked up the wand, Ollivander took the wand away from Zhang Su's hand. It doesn't suit you, I'll look for it again. Ollivander searched through the pile of boxes as he spoke. Dogwood, dragon's nerve, 11 inches. Oh, it doesn't fit. Hazel still doesn't fit. Acacia wood, what a picky customer, and it's not suitable. Black walnut, yes, it really doesn't suit you, then try this cedar wood. As time went by, more and more boxes were placed next to Ollivander and Zhang Su, but there was still no wand suitable for Zhang Su to use. Zhang Su even took a standardized magic wand brought from China as a reference for Ollivander, but he just shook his head. Zhang Su's mind immediately became active. Could it be that there are often words in various novels? The story of discovering the awesome mysterious item will happen to me, someone Zhang thought. No way. After a red oak wand failed, Ollivander shouted hysterically, how could a wizard not find a suitable wand in the Ollivander family shop? Zhang Su was taken aback by Ollivander's performance. He was afraid that he would shout I am ashamed of my ancestors, and then bumped his head to death under the signboard on the store door. Now there is only one solution left. There is no wizard in this world who cannot find a suitable wand in the Ollivander family's shop. Ollivander said looking at Zhang Su with bloodshot eyes. You won't kill someone to silence you, right? Zhang Su said to Ollivander cautiously, and at the same time quietly moved towards the door of the store. Hey, that's a good way. Ollivander said suddenly, in this way, there will be no wizards in the world who can't find a suitable wand from me. At this moment, the idea of obtaining the hidden SSR wand in the traditional routine after untold hardships all escaped from Zhang Su's mind. If Ollivander hadn't closed the door in time, Zhang Su would have run out onto the street shouting Ollivander killed someone. After Ollivander spent several minutes assuring Zhang Su that he had no intention of killing people, Zhang Su came down from the top of a sturdy shelf. After Zhang Su sat down again on the bench for guests, Ollivander told him his solution. Ollivander said, Sir, you sit on the stool, then close your eyes, calm down and slowly sense the position of the wand calling you. After Zhang Su took a deep breath, he relaxed his whole body, then closed his eyes and entered into meditation mode. Zhang Su is not unfamiliar with this method of searching for magic items around him after entering meditation, and he quickly entered the state. Not long after, Zhang Su noticed something in a certain direction that seemed to be attracting his attention. Zhang Su stretched out his hand in that direction, and then silently recited a spell similar to the Philae curse in his heart. Ollivander saw Zhang Su, who had his eyes closed, suddenly reach out to the direction of the cabinet under the counter, so he walked there. Just when Ollivander was about to open the cabinet door, he heard a bang, as if something flew out from the cabinet after knocking open the door. Then there was another bang, and a long box hit Ollivander's forehead all at once. When Ollivander rubbed his forehead with one hand and walked up to Zhang Su with a particularly long box in the other, Zhang Su felt a little embarrassed. "Try it," Ollivander said after handing the box to Zhang Su. "I don't remember such a magic wand in the cabinet." After Zhang Su took the box and opened it, he was stunned. "Mr. Ollivander, are you sure this is the right wand for me?" Zhang Su asked with some uncertainty. Zhang Su looked at the rolling pin in the box, which was more than half a meter long and about 4 centimeters in diameter. This wand is either slender and delicate, or it is as domineering as the one in Gandalf's hand that can be used as a stick, or it is as handsome as the domestic mahogany sword. But this one with a synchronization rate as high as 99.99 with a rolling pin, isn't it really Ollivander's conspiracy? Since this wand has chosen you, it is suitable for you to use. Ollivander said, "From the box, it should be the work of my ancestors more than 300 years ago. Because it has not been waiting for 300 years the right wizard for it appeared, so I left it out. Obviously, you are its owner who has been waiting for more than 300 years. Although this wand was made more than 300 years ago, the technology it uses is not outdated even now. I can tell you that the Ollivander family credit guarantee." Ollivander sells his products to Zhang Su like a salesman. Hearing what Ollivander said, Zhang Su almost believed it, because when Zhang Su picked up the wand from the box, a piece of parchment fell out. The parchment note seems to have a lot of history. Ollivander picked it up and read it. "When traveling in America, I found that there are many interesting materials there, so I used white quebrach and ptarmigan tail feathers made this one." Ollivander didn't say anything for a long time. Zhang Su unceremoniously stretched his head over, and saw that at the end of the paragraph was written, "This crutch that can cast magic." At the end of the note is the signature of a member of the Ollivander family, dated 1630. "I don't think your ancestor was tall, Mr. Ollivander," Zhang Su said while holding the crutch for a while. "I think I know the words magic wand and crutch." The cold sweat on Ollivander's forehead broke out at a speed visible to the naked eye. If it was reported that he sold the crutch as a magic wand to others, the family's 1,000-year-old brand would be smashed into his hands. If the other party wasn't a Hogwarts freshman, Ollivander might have planned to kill him. "It's just a magic wand, sir," Ollivander said firmly to Zhang Su after wiping off his cold sweat. "Although it has some differences in appearance from other wands, it is different from other ones in terms of structure and function. It's different. When it comes to crutches, it's just that my ancestors were joking about its shape." Hearing Ollivander's explanation so hard, Zhang Su didn't want to say anything more. After all, he just wanted to buy a magic wand as a souvenir and take it home for collection. What happened today can only be used as a topic for future discussions. So Zhang Su decided to buy the wand after Ollivander offered it for only 1 galleon, but Ollivander also has a small request, that is, don't talk about what happened today. Fortunately, Zhang Su came to Diagon Alley half a month earlier, so Ollivander had no guests here in the afternoon. Otherwise Ollivander would cry back to reality dividing line. It's just that Zhang Su has been throwing this magic wand that can roll dough in his treasure bag for so many years, and has never used it to cast a spell. Now Professor Flitwick told him to use that wand during the exam. Zhang Su didn't know what to say for a while. After Zhang Su put his hand into the treasure bag and fiddled with it for a while, he finally took out the wand from a certain corner, and placed it in front of Professor Flitwick. "This is the wand I bought from Ollivander," Zhang Su said to Professor Flitwick. Professor Flitwick looked at the wand in bewilderment. "It can be used as a crutch for me," said Professor Flitwick. Chapter 314 Establishing an Investigation Action Team. Although Professor Flitwick marveled that Zhang Su's wand was different from ordinary people, he still suggested that he get acquainted with this wand when he had the chance, so as not to be caught off guard during the exam. During Zhang Su's days at Hogwarts, he was so busy that he kept his feet on the ground when he was busy, and there were no accidents for a long time when he was free. Zhang Su counted the proportion of leisure time. Perhaps, as the Minister of Magic said, a peaceful life is the mainstream. In the next period of time, Zhang Su's daily life has an additional practice of using that magic wand. The difference between Professor Flitwick and Professor Zhang is that the veteran and authentic professor can rely on his rich experience to see the problem at a glance. The first time Zhang Su used this rolling pin to cast magic, he got himself into the school doctor's office. Fortunately, Professor Flitwick reminded him, otherwise, if Zhang Su used the rolling pin for the first time during the exam, the invigilator might have to go into the school infirmary to lie down together. Dividing line in Percy's office, a visitor came today. Malfoy sat at his desk, looking nervously at Professor Weasley across the desk. Professor Weasley was sitting in his seat, tapping his fingers on his desk at a frequency of 1 Hz, and he was lost in thought. Old Ma once taught Xiao Ma to make friends with people who are useful to him, no matter if the other party is an official of the Ministry of Magic or a student of Hogwarts, even if the other party has had conflicts with himself. As long as there are enough interests, there is no conflict that cannot be let go. Therefore, Xiao Ma needs to learn to use various interests to make friends with all parties and reach an exchange of interests with the other party. In his life plan, this kind of life will only start when others reach middle age or when their hairline moves. It's just that Malfoy never imagined that this day would come so soon. A few days ago, he received a letter from Lao Ma, asking him to make friends with a senior investigator, and it would be best if he could play an important role under the senior investigator. Moreover, he offended the senior investigator last year, and was banned from participating in the Quidditch competition by the senior investigator. So, after thinking about it, it took several days for the little horse to formulate a plan to hook up with the senior investigator, Professor Percy Weasley. So Xiao Ma came to Percy's office one night with a voting certificate. "Is your news true?" Percy asked Malfoy while knocking on the table. "I can guarantee that this news is absolutely true," Malfoy said confidently. "I have also participated in their activities several times, so I can guarantee that this news is absolutely true." "Then tell me all the details," Percy said to Malfoy. Malfoy cleared his throat and said, "Harry Potter has figured out how to open the door from the tree wall and enter the maze. Every Saturday at around, o'clock in the evening, Harry Potter will bring the original Defense Society members to the maze training inside." Then Percy asked, "What training?" Malfoy replied, "Training for combat with spells." "Can you be sure they're using spells to fight?" Percy asked, frowning. "Can you make sure they're not doing transfiguration or charms homework together?" Malfoy, after being asked by Percy, Malfoy remembered that under the tutelage of Who Knows, the current students, after violating the school rules, opened their eyes and talked nonsense to defend themselves. "I am studying with a book of speech and eloquence." Seeing that Malfoy was stuck, Percy didn't bother with it anymore, and continued to ask, "And how can you be sure that they are members of the original Defense Association?" "An NBSP, those people are almost the same as those on the Defense Association list before," Malfoy said a little uncertainly. When he said this, Malfoy himself could think of several ways to deny this accusation with open eyes and nonsense. This does not serve as evidence that they are holding activities in the name of the Defense Association. Percy shook his head and said, "If only the people who appear are similar to those on the list, then eating in the auditorium every day can be regarded as a defense the association's party is on." "But they're all practicing magic duels," Malfoy said. "How many people practice magic duels together?" Percy asked. "2, Malfoy replied. "But the number 20 no. Education order stipulates that the group organization is 3 or more people." Percy shook his head and said, "Of course, if a man and a girl are practicing next to each other, it will violate the education order." Malfoy remained silent. When he was thinking of taking the private activities of the Defense Association as a nomination certificate, he thought that as long as he told Percy that the Defense Association was currently active in private, Percy would immediately take him to arrest people, and then he could take the opportunity to humiliate Harry Potter, the organizer. And finally Percy patted him on the shoulder and said, "The lad has a future." In the end, Malfoy didn't expect that there were so many loopholes to exploit in this matter, and a serious violation of the education order could be avoided so easily. In the final analysis, Malfoy didn't take into account that Percy's prestige and status were not high this time, and he couldn't decide with a single word when many students were involved. If Percy wanted to make an iron case about the private activities of the Defense Association, what he needed was a lot of solid evidence, and he couldn't give the other party the opportunity to exploit loopholes. Seeing Malfoy, who was a little downcast, Percy took a piece of parchment and wrote a few lines on it, then took out a silver badge from the desk drawer and put it on the parchment, and then they pushed them together in front of Malfoy. Malfoy took the parchment curiously, first took a look at the badge with the letter I on the front, and then read the parchment carefully. "Malfoy, who was a little depressed, became elated after reading the contents of the parchment. The parchment read, Hogwarts Senior Inquisitor orders hereby appoint Draco Malfoy as a member of the Investigative Operations Team. Members of the Investigation Action Team are responsible for organizing credible students to conduct investigations on Hogwarts students. The above regulations comply with number 90 No. Education Order. Signed, Senior Inquisitor Percy Ignatius Weasley Malfoy was so happy at this moment that his hands holding the parchment trembled a little. Among the more than 100 education orders issued by the Ministry of Magic during this period, only number 90 No. Education Order was not published. Many students, including Malfoy, entrusted their families to inquire about the contents of this education order from the Ministry of Magic, but they found nothing, only knowing that Fudge formulated and signed this education order and handed it directly to Percival Sly's hand. Now Malfoy knew that the content of this education order was to authorize the students to form a spy organization. Percy looked at Malfoy, who was already happily lost, and said, "It's up to you what to do next. I only care about the result, Mr. Malfoy. However, I hope that you will not reveal your identities before making corresponding achievements." Malfoy, who had already played it on a loop in his head many times, put on the badge of the Investigation Operations Group in Harry Potter's desperate eyes, and then ordered Harry Potter to get out of Hogwarts, nodded hurriedly after hearing Percy's request promise. It is orthodox to use this kind of identity to slap your face at critical moments, and it is evil to show it off at ordinary times. Chapter 315 Malfoy and number 039, S Actions. Malfoy, who had left Percy's office, was very hot in his heart at the moment. No matter how he looked at it, becoming a member of the Investigative Operations Team and forming a team of his own would bring him many benefits. For a young man like Malfoy, who is about to turn 16, being a privileged class in the school and enjoying the envious eyes of his classmates is acutely attractive. Just like Zhang Su, becoming an acting professor to scold Fang Chu in class, and having the privilege of being able to bring his girlfriend back to the dormitory, has made many people envious and jealous. The first word Malfoy learned after birth was mother. For a long time, the word father was only used to describe a person who only existed in photos. When Malfoy was 3, his mother took him to a party at someone's house for the first time. At the banquet, little Malfoy saw a kid surnamed Fudge, 7 or 8 years older than him, surrounded by other kids, smiling brightly like the sun amidst the compliments from the other kids. At that moment, a throb of a man should be like this rose in the heart of little Malfoy. When he got home, he asked his mother why other people's fathers could make their children live such wonderful lives, while his own father could only be seen in the photos. Because little Malfoy heard people say at the banquet that the reason why the kid who believed in Fudge was complimented by others was because the kid had a good father. Malfoy's mother told him that his father had gone to far away place 6 months before he was born, but would be back soon. He can also be in the limelight when his father returns. At that moment, little Malfoy's heart was chilly, because his grandfather Abraxas Malfoy was said by his mother not long ago to have traveled to a faraway place, and then he was put into a coffin and buried in the soil. Half a year later, little Malfoy finally saw his father, who was about to take him to pretend and fly with him. Little Malfoy, who was by his father's side, was soon praised by others, and he gradually became the most popular star among his peers during the banquet. But the little Malfoy, who enjoyed it, soon noticed a name Harry Potter that often came up when adults were talking. Brother is not in the arena, but there are still legends about him in the arena, talking about people like Harry Potter. Heroes in the world, only Harry and Draco. After learning about Harry Potter's deeds from books and others, Malfoy thought so. On the train to Hogwarts that year, Malfoy sincerely wanted to pretend to fly with Harry Potter together. After arriving at Hogwarts, Harry Potter really became the focus of attention. What makes Malfoy regretful is that he is not the one who accepts the admiration of his classmates by Harry Potter's side. As for another high-profile student of the same grade in Hogwarts, Malfoy's father reminded him at least 10 times a day not to conflict with that classmate in the half-month before the start of school. And now that there was an opportunity for him to fly, how could Malfoy not be excited? A gust of cold wind blew through the window into the castle corridor, making Malfoy jittery and calming down at the same time. Some things seem simple, but they are very complicated to do, especially if the other party is not easy to bully. To do things, you must first gather reliable people and build your own core team. From bandits in cottages to listed companies in high-rise buildings, their leaders must have a core team that is in step with them. With this core team as the backbone, They can pull up a considerable strength team. Malfoy searched for his trusted classmates in his mind, and found that only one Center Crab, Gregory Gower and Pansy Parkinson deserve their own credit. This is a bit embarrassing. The brains of Vincent Crabbe and Gregory Goyle are basically negligible. Pansy Parkinson formed a small circle with a few girls, but in this small circle the members are a bit more complicated. Malfoy, with a confused head, had already reached the entrance hall at this moment. He looked at the corridor leading to the basement and the gate leading to the outside of the castle. After hesitating for a while, he decided to walk towards the gate. Stimulated by the cool breeze under the night, Malfoy felt that his brain seemed to be working better than before. Now he is a little envious of Harry Potter, because the teammates around Harry Potter are more powerful than each other, while the teammates around him are more deadly than others, and they have to be thrown away when comparing goods. As Malfoy wandered aimlessly on the lawn, one name after another of the students of the Snake House popped up in his mind, but he quickly dismissed them. Because among these people, Malfoy can't trust those who are capable, and those who are trustworthy by Malfoy are not so capable, and there is no one who can get the best of both worlds. If you have not been suspended, your teammates on the Quidditch team are a good choice, Malfoy thought. And Malfoy counted the time and found that he had no time to rebuild his core team because he got a vague message from his father that Fudge was most likely planning to make a big move at Hogwarts. This is why the old horse is eager to let the pony gain a foothold under the senior investigator Percy Weasley. Putting his envy of Harry Potter's teammates to the back of his mind, Malfoy thought of someone else. Who are Zhang-Su's helpers? Can he refer to it? Malfoy sat on the stone bench by the lake and thought slowly. As a result, the more Malfoy thought about it, the cold sweat on his forehead began to break out. As the only child of the Malfoy family, Lao Ma has put a lot of effort into cultivating the pony in the past 2 years. After knowing Zhang-Su's actions outside of being a Hogwarts student, Malfoy stopped thinking about competing with him. Now that I think about it carefully, Hogwarts, from the headmaster Dumbledore to Filch, can be said to be Zhang-Su's helper, so Malfoy can't refer to his approach. Malfoy thought that when Zhang-Su had a good relationship with his family, Zhang-Su had taught him for a while, although the content of the teaching is just that Zhang-Su said using history as a mirror, you can know the reasons for the rise and fall of a country and a family, while pushing a whole set of Cambridge ancient history, Cambridge medieval history, and Cambridge modern history in front of him, so that he can learn the truth in front of him. If you don't understand something, ask him. Thinking of this, Malfoy suddenly remembered what Zhang-Su said at that time. Many people encounter difficult problems, but they just sigh and cannot solve them. At this time, take your 2 feet and go to various parts and places of your work scope. Because your mind is empty when you have not gone out, and when you return the mind is no longer empty, it has already loaded all the necessary materials to solve the problem, and the problem is solved in this way. Thinking of this, Malfoy decided not to think about those useless things at all, and went to participate in the activities of the Defense Association first, and then figured out a solution according to the situation. It was Saturday, and now the Defense Association's activities in the maze were about to begin. Malfoy chose this day to go to the senior investigator, with the intention of being taken down by Percy in one fell swoop, while those who participated in the Defense Association activities had no time to react. Since the senior investigator entrusted him with the task of investigating this matter, and he currently has no reliable subordinates, he can only go there himself. Maybe he can find suitable candidates for his subordinates. Malfoy had also participated in many Defense Association activities before, so after he entered the maze today, the other students didn't feel anything wrong. Malfoy was contacting other students of the Snake Academy with spells, while observing other people and the key points around them. Soon, an idea took shape in his mind. Chapter 316 Prepare for the Battle. While Malfoy was quietly taking action, Zhang-Su was also busy with things that gave him headaches. Next month is the Easter holiday, and the 3-school Quidditch competition will be held at Boxburton School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. However, just 2 days ago, when Zhang-Su came out of the school infirmary, Dumbledore called him over. After the routine greetings, tea and dessert, Dumbledore got straight to the point. The 3-school Quidditch match at Boxburton's next month has undergone a slight change, said Dumbledore. Zhang-Su was a little surprised when he heard it, so he put down his teacup and waited for Dumbledore's next words. Dumbledore went on to say, during the game, Russia's Cottas Torres, Japan's Magic Institute, Uganda's Ouagadougou, Brazil's Castro Busque, and America's Oliver Morny, the magic schools will send representatives to watch the battle. At that time, representatives from our 8 magic schools will discuss the possibility of holding the 8-school Quidditch competition. Zhang Su thought about it. Since ancient times, the 3 schools have played together in the top 3 competitions. Although it doesn't matter if there are more schools for the Goblet of Fire, the rules have always been like this, and there is no reason for other schools to intervene, but the Quidditch competition of the 3 schools is different. This is a new competition, and the participating schools attach great importance to it. If it is early, everyone is willing to join in and play together. Zhang Su felt that this was feasible, so he nodded to Dumbledore and said, "This is a good thing, it can promote exchanges between schools." Dumbledore also nodded and said, "It is indeed the case, so there is a high possibility that this competition can be held. As the initiator of the 3-school Quidditch competition, I hope you can formulate several 8-school Quidditch competitions before this. At that time, I will personally lead the team to Boxbutton, and it can be used when discussing with representatives of other schools." Now that the leader of the store has assigned the task, Zhang Su can only take over the task. Fortunately, Zhang Su spent as much time playing the Football Manager series as he did the Civilization series. When the time comes, it will be a matter of minutes to come up with several plans for the group match, knockout match, and away game. After arranging this matter, Dumbledore proposed a new task. Dumbledore said to Zhang Su, "When I'm at Boxbuttons, I will focus on negotiating with representatives of other schools. I hope you can contribute to the management of the players. The leader wants you to contribute, so you naturally have to contribute voluntarily." There is nothing to say, and Zhang Su nodded in agreement. Then Dumbledore said, "I hope we can win the final match next month." This time it was the leader who set the goal. The goal didn't seem too difficult, and it would be fine if he worked hard, but Zhang Su would not agree to it so easily. This is the time to ask for benefits from the leader. After some negotiations, the two reached a series of agreements. After negotiating a few conditions, Dumbledore changed the subject and talked about several other schools of magic. Then Dumbledore asked suddenly, "Zhang, are you familiar with magic?" Zhang Su nodded in confusion, and said, "I still understand it." Zhang Su has read a lot of information about this Japanese magic school located on South Iwo Jima. The stone slabs on the stone road in the back garden of his affordable villa were dismantled from the Magic Palace, the main building of the Magic Institute. Zhang Zuhua. It took a lot of effort to get it back from the antique market of the alchemists. Thinking of this, Zhang Su knew why Dumbledore asked this question, assuming that the Germans demolished the Hogwarts castle decades ago. The scene when the Germans met the head of Hogwarts now was no more harmonious than when Harry and Malfoy met. After figuring out Dumbledore's concerns, Zhang Su could only spread his hands and assure old Deng that he would not take the initiative to cause trouble when he was in Boxbuttons. Dividing line after dinner, Zhang Su called all the members of the school team to the Quidditch pitch before today's training, and then began to convey instructions from the school leaders. Zhang Su stood in the middle of the court, and in front of him were more than a dozen regular Hogwarts team members and substitutes, waiting for Zhang Su to start speaking. "Today, I got a newest from Professor Dumbledore information," Zhang Su said. "During the Easter holiday, during the 3-school Quidditch competition, in addition to Hogwarts, Boxbuttons, and Durmstrang, there were also Russian cadasterates, Japanese representatives from 5 schools of magic, Uganda's Wagadu, Brazil's Castrabush and America's Alvermorny. Watch the battle." As soon as Zhang Su finished speaking, the team members started chatting and discussing. The news shocked them a lot. Zhang Su raised his hand and pressed down, stopped the team members from discussing, and then said something that shocked them even more. "If this year's competition goes well, there will be a great possibility that our 8 magic schools will organize a Quidditch tournament involving 8 schools." Hearing this news, there were quite a few players who sighed. These players were all senior players like the twin brothers. If they really wanted to organize such a competition, they would only be spectators after graduation. "Everyone calm down first, there will be more exciting news later," Zhang Su said to Harry and his team members who were elated. "What's the news?" Fred asked. "Is there any bonus for winning?" George asked again. "That's right," Zhang Su replied with a smile. Zhang Su cleared his throat, and said to the players who were staring at him, "Professor Dumbledore promises that if we win the championship, all the players will get generous bonuses, and the players who perform well will get extra rewards." Amidst the cheers of the players, Harry suddenly asked, "What if you don't win the championship?" After Zhang Su sneered twice, the team members fell silent. At this time, Zhang Su's expression was a bit strange, and the team members were all waiting for his next words. "If you are not the champion, you will lose." Zhang Su said, "I promised Dumbledore that if we don't win the championship, we will all go to Kalingley coal mine to dig coal." The team members wailed at the same time, and the twin brothers imitated the action of digging coal with a broomstick as a hoe. "Fred, George, coal digging is not done like this now. If you two fail to hit the bludger on the opponent's player's head, then you will know how to dig coal." "Zhang Su was being funny," said the twin brother. "Are you kidding, Zhang?" a member of the Snake Academy asked with a smile. "I was joking with Professor Dumbledore." Zhang Su spread his hands and said, but Professor Dumbledore's expression doesn't seem to take it as a joke. Another wail followed. After the team members had been arguing for a while, Zhang Su clapped his hands to attract their attention and said, "Okay, let me say something to make everyone happy. Professor Dumbledore has approved that from today until the Easter holiday, the players on the team are not required to do their homework. So do we have to practice every day?" Ron asked. "It's obvious," Zhang Su said, "as a matter of course, otherwise why would you be exempted from your homework?" This time, the team members responded mediocrely. Although they got the benefit of not having to do homework, everyone understands the truth that you can only gain if you give up, not to mention winning prizes. Losing might be punished badly. Everyone thought that Zhang Su was about to announce his disbandment. When he started training, he said, "The last news is that Dumbledore will hire the recently retired Quidditch coach, Mr. Brian Clough, to come and guide us in Quidditch. Mr. Clough has agreed to the training of the team, and he will start training with us tomorrow." At this moment, the court suddenly became quiet, and all the players looked at Zhang Su in a daze. "What you said is true?" Ron asked Zhang Su, his mouth widened in shock. "Professor Dumbledore told me that." Zhang Su said, "Tomorrow everyone will know that what Professor Dumbledore said is true or false." Not surprisingly, the team members who are familiar with the history of British Quidditch were stunned by the news. After leaving the principal's office, Zhang Su went to the library to find a book introducing the history of Quidditch. After Ryan Clough's experience, Zhang Su can only lament that Dumbledore's face is really big enough, which is almost the same as the old Sir Alex Ferguson going to be the coach of a club. Chapter 317. Not every day. Since Mr. Brian Clough came to Hogwarts, all the Quidditch-loving students in Hogwarts were excited. If the four deans hadn't issued a death order to keep the students from disturbing Mr. Clough, the quarters would be filled with students looking for his autograph. Mr. Clough called up the four house Quidditch teams to play a 1-hour practice match with the reserves each on the first 2 days. While watching the game, an assistant held parchment to help him take notes. When Dumbledore announced that Mr. Clough needed an assistant, a group of students almost fought for the spot, and they fought for the final winner after some internal competition. Through the performance of the players in the practice match, Mr. Clough made some adjustments on the original basis of the school team. And Zhang, who wanted to be lazy, failed to be lazy this time, and became the all-around substitute of the school team, and had to train with the team every night. The next time is a variety of tactical drills. At this time, technical training is useless, and it is only serious to practice more tactics. With Zhang Su around, the entire stadium is brightly lit, so you won't be afraid to see the ball in the dark at night. In this way, it will be hard for Zhang Su. Although he doesn't need to do homework, he needs to change his homework. So every night after training, he dragged his tired body to change his homework. In addition to homework, he also had to toss about the organization plan of the 8 schools Quidditch competition. For a while, Zhang Su was so busy that he was about to fly. During Hogsmeade week in March, Mr. Clough gave all the team members a day off, which gave Zhang Su time to go to his villa to chat with Fu Rong on the phone. During this time, he was so busy that he even stopped his routine phone calls at night. Fortunately, during this period of time, both Percy and Voldemort died down. It seemed that they all knew that Dumbledore was about to leave England for a period of time, so there was no rush to make troubles. During this short spare time, Zhang Su strolled around Hogsmeade after talking on the phone, replenished candies at Honeydukes, had a drink at the Three Broomsticks bar, and finally decided to go to the coffee shop Lido Fish Cakes. As a result, as soon as Zhang Su entered the coffee shop, he was dragged away by a man. "Quick, we need you now." Anthony Goldstein hurried over, pulled Zhang Su up and ran towards the big table in the middle of the coffee shop. During the time when Anthony followed Anthony to the Total War table, Anthony told Zhang Su that the 4 colleges are now competing, and the losing college will ask for classes from the other 3 colleges today, while the few students from the Eagle College today are competing with each other. A representative did not perform well and is now at the bottom. The representative of the Eagle Academy saw that Anthony had pulled Zhang Su over, so he gave up his position, and Zhang Su also took his position without hesitation. Without further ado, the four of them started the game directly. In front of Zhang Su was a piece of parchment as a control panel, with various options marked on it. I chose random for the terrain, and soon there was a wave of ups and downs on the desktop, forming a rugged mountainous terrain. This kind of terrain is not suitable for cavalry operations. Unless the cavalry occupies the commanding heights and charges down like an avalanche, the cavalry climbing the mountain is not as good as the infantry, so this battle is dominated by infantry. At this time, Zhang Su noticed that the three opponents were flirting, and saw that they were going to deal with him together. So in the next preparation time, Zhang Su chose a defensive-oriented troop configuration. After the preparation time was over, soldiers and horses from all directions began to appear on the sand table in the middle of the table as if they had grown out of the ground. This picture is very unscientific, but it is very magical. This is a very advanced use of transfiguration. When all the soldiers and horses appeared, the crowd of onlookers let out exclamations of wonder, but soon, the exclamation turned into a shameless voice. Because the four players sit on the four sides of the sand table is divided into four isosceles right-angled triangles with diagonal lines, and each player can arrange his troops in the triangle in front of him. I saw that Zhang Su chose 8 teams of pikemen with the highest defense power, 8 teams of archers with the highest attack power, 3 teams of ordinary cavalry, and 1 team of the most basic cannon fodder cavalry. Then Zhang Su arranged all the troops on the top of the mountain in the corner of the sand table on his right. Behind the top of the mountain was the edge of the sand table. The archers are in the corner, the cavalry are on both sides, and the pikemen are in a row in front, forming a triangle with no gaps with the 2 sides of the sand table. This is the most shameless way of defending corners in the Total War series of games. The other 3 players were also stupefied at the moment. This was the first time they had seen such a shameless way of playing. If they don't care about Zhang Su fighting each other, Zhang Su can only reap the benefits in the end. If you want to attack Zhang Su, who has a convenient location, can let the enemies who feign the attack have a meal of arrows first, and then wait for them to hit the spear array. Zhang Su also took advantage of the imperfect rules now. If he played like this when playing against others in his previous life, he would have been blocked by other players. Looking at Zhang Su's reassuring smile, the 3 people on the opposite side were so angry that they wanted to pull out their wands and hide him. After the 3 of them looked at each other, they began to mobilize their troops to attack Zhang Su's hedgehog-like triangular formation. Zhang Su took a look at the opponent's strength. They were mainly infantry, supplemented by archers, and equipped with a very small number of cavalry. Seeing that the other party did not have a catapult, Zhang Su was secretly relieved. However, Zhang Su didn't have an easy fight next time. If the opponent rushed up in a swarm, there was a high chance that he would issue a GG. But the 3 opponents are not of one mind, and they have to reserve part of their troops to fight for the final victory after eliminating Zhang Su, and the opponent is not yet proficient in this game. If he can use the skills of his troops proficiently, a tortoise-shell explosion can break the pikemen's spear array. As a result, the scene became Zhang Su's fueling tactics against the opponent while feeding the fish cakes with small dried fish. In the end, at the cost of losing all the cavalry who launched the counter-charge, % of the pikemen and half of the archers without ammunition were lost as meat shields, Zhang Su blocked the last board charge launched by the 3 opponents. After winning this game, Zhang Su won the next 2 games by relying on all cavalry archers to fly kites and all cavalry to charge. From this day onwards, Zhang Su's games are listed as prohibited games. After getting his college's score out of the bottom, Zhang Su left the table with the fish cake in his arms, and sat down at the bar of the coffee shop. After changing ginger and fish cakes, Hood put the 2 bills in front of Zhang Su. "Can I use my VIP card for a discount?" Zhang Su asked after reading the bill. After Zhang Su promised to help a certain Auror office director pay the bill 5 times, he invited the Aurors who were on vacation to come to the coffee shop for a round of consumption for 2 days in a row. Although Zhang Su is not short of money, he still feels overwhelmed when he sees these 2 bills. And how could Hood make Zhang Su fulfill his wish? He shook his head and said to him, "Only the consumption you participate in can use your VIP card. Not available at checkout." Reluctantly, Zhang Su had no choice but to take out his money bag and put a row of gold coins on the table. After counting the gold coins, Hood put them away, and then whispered to Zhang Su, "If you are free, go to the second floor. The second room on the right-hand side on the second floor." Zhang Su looked at Hood and asked with a smile. Hood touched Ginger and said, "Which room you want to enter is your freedom." And Zhang Su nodded, and then walked to the second floor. Entering Hood's room was just a joke. Zhang Su went up to the second floor and then went to the living room where he came back last time. The reception room is open, but there is no one in it. There was a paper bag on the tea table in front of the sofa where Zhang Su was sitting last time, with a label attached to it. Zhang Su walked over and glanced at the label, and found that it said that this bag of information was for Zhang Su as promised earlier. Zhang Su checked the paper bag and put it away after finding nothing unusual. Then he tore off the note, wrote the receipt on the label, and left with the paper bag. After saying hello to Hood, Zhang Su left the coffee shop and came to the Pig's Head bar. Zhang Su, who couldn't see his face with the hood on, threw a few silver coins on the bar, and then said in a changed voice, "I want a room." The boss behind the bar didn't look at Zhang Su, but just took out a rusty key from a drawer under the bar and threw it on the bar. Zhang Su picked up the key and went upstairs directly. I have to say that the sanitation of the rooms above the Pig's Head bar is terrible. It took Zhang Su several minutes to make it barely livable. Zhang Su sat down in front of the table in the room, lit the candles on the table, then took out the paper bag he got in the coffee shop just now, opened it and took out the documents inside. This document is the interrogation record of the interrogation of Barty Crouch Jr. I don't know how they pried open Barty Crouch Jr.'s mouth and got a lot of useful information. As soon as I turned to the second page, a figure suddenly appeared in the room, pulled the chair opposite Zhang Su and sat down, and then said to Zhang Su, "I didn't expect it to be in the Dujia Bridge Inn. There are no diamonds worth, francs here," Zhang Su said without looking up at the file. "I thought you would choose Mandarin Oriental Hyde Park, London," said the guest. "Maybe it would be better to go to Dubai." Zhang Su replied. "I prefer the Maldives," the guest said after thinking for a while. "Well, so do I." Zhang Su nodded while looking at the document. "It's nice to rent an island and go diving without being disturbed." "Evil rich man," said the last visitor viciously. The two of them chatted one after another until Zhang Su carefully read the documents in his hand. Just as Zhang Su put down the document in his hand, 3 more figures appeared in the room. Ms. Hood, why are you holding a camera in your hand?" Zhang Su asked one of the 3 people who had just appeared. "I thought you two were alone in the same room, and something worth taking pictures would happen," Hood said with a regretful expression, looking at Zhang Su and Wales sitting opposite him. "The result is really a pity." Nelson, who was standing beside Hood, also said regretfully. Rodney also said, "We also specially set aside half an hour." Just when Wales was about to hit someone, Zhang Su picked up the paper bag on the table and shook it, asking them, "What the hell are you doing this time?" "We just want to see if we can sneak into Hogwarts," Wales said directly without hesitation. Zhang Su put down the paper bag, pinched the center of his eyebrows and said helplessly, "Although Hogwarts protective magic has loopholes, it cannot be broken through with just this bit of space magic. Fortunately, I found out early, otherwise you will have trouble. Recently, the defense of Hogwarts has been strengthened. Don't say you didn't see the charred corpses that were moved out of the secret passage leading to Hogwarts not long ago. The traps in the secret passage are so cruel," Hood asked. "Do you think I will say it?" Zhang Su asked back. Regardless of the guys who tried to sneak into Hogwarts, Zhang Su copied the document just now with an automatic quill pen, returned the original to them, and put away the attachment. "If you want to go to Hogwarts, you can submit an application to Professor Dumbledore or Professor McGonagall. It is estimated that the chances of being approved are very high." Zhang Su said to them, "Don't make so many tricks at this time. In case of a misunderstanding, causing unnecessary losses would be bad for everyone." After speaking, Zhang Su put on his hood, said goodbye and left. Walking downstairs, throwing the room key back on the bar, Zhang Su left the Pig's Head bar. When he was about to walk to the door of the 3 broomsticks, he found that the 4 of them had apparated from the Pig's Head and were about to enter the 3 broomsticks. After returning to Hogwarts, Zhang Su drove directly to the principal's office. "Those ladies might want to visit Hogwarts," Zhang Su said to Dumbledore straight to the point. Dumbledore knew who Zhang Su was talking about, and after thinking about it, he asked, "Are their identities okay?" Zhang Su replied, "We have verified it here, and there is no problem with their identities. They are indeed from there." Seeing that Dumbledore remained silent, as if he was thinking about something, Zhang Su didn't interrupt him, but just put the copy of Barty Crouch Jr.'s interrogation record that he had just obtained on his desktop. After Dumbledore came back to his senses, he picked up the document and turned 2 pages, then put it on the side of the desk. At this moment, Dumbledore suddenly thought of something, opened the drawer and said to Zhang Su, "By the way, this is for you." Then Dumbledore handed Zhang Su a brand new roll of parchment. Zhang Su took the parchment and opened it, then asked in surprise, "New Marauder's map?" I asked Remus and Sirius to find a way to make a few new copies. "I think they will be useful in the future." Dumbledore said, "You can set the password to open." Apparently Dumbledore thought it would be useful for defending Hogwarts in the coming days, so he asked Lupin and Black to make a few more copies. As for who gave the other copies, Zhang Su tactfully did not ask. For eradicating intruders, having the Marauder's map is like entering CK Sheep Wall, and intruders can be easily found. Zhang Su took a look at the new Marauder's map, and saw that it had the same function as the old one. He had the idea of asking Lupin to study it and add a color to distinguish the names of teachers and students in the school and the names of intruders. But if Dumbledore knew that Zhang Su was sighing in his heart at this moment, he finally didn't have to worry about being rejected when he went to the prefect's bathroom. He wondered if he would use the Elder One to BIU him to death. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 318 on changing the painting style. Professor Dumbledore is still amazing. Amid all the busy schedule, the time finally came for the day when the Quidditch team went to Boxbutton's. Ever since he saw Boxbutton's carriage and Durmstrang's sailboat, Zhang Su has always wanted to know what is the long-distance holding tool for Hogwarts. When Zhang Su asked Dumbledore this question, Old Deng smiled and said nothing later. When Zhang Su asked Professor McGonagall in the faculty lounge, the expressions of Professor McGonagall and Professor Flitwick were very subtle, and his old professor kept silent about it. When Zhang Su saw their vehicle for this trip on the lawn outside the castle, the expression on his face was even more bewildered than seeing Voldemort's long hair. Zhang Su walked to Dumbledore with a dumbfounded expression, and asked, "Professor, is this?" Dumbledore said in a very proud tone, "This is the latest transportation tool for our Hogwarts. It was made by me and other wizards in the world for 3 years. Thanks to you for giving us inspiration, Mr. Zhang." Zhang Su said dumbly, "Very good, very powerful." Immediately Zhang Su asked again, "Professor, why did you think of making such a vehicle? The original Hogwarts vehicles are already old, so we started to make new ones." Dumbledore said to Zhang Su, "How about it? It's pretty good, right?" At this time, Zhang Su thought of a serious problem, and he asked Dumbledore, "Professor, it won't be detected by the Muggle radar?" Dumbledore thought for a moment and said, "Probably not. With magic protection, magic items flying in the sky are rarely discovered by Muggles." Then Dumbledore pushed Zhang Su, and said, "Go up." We arrived at Boxbutton's, which happens to be the time for their dinner. So Zhang Su stepped up the stairs anxiously. He was very worried that the headlines of the world's major media tomorrow would be that the British Air Force or the French Air Force shot down a flying saucer with a diameter of, feet and a height of, feet. Well, that's right. Hogwarts' latest vehicle looks like a round flying saucer that appeared in various old movies and news. The shape of this flying saucer is like 2 saucers merged with each other. The whole body is silver and bright, and there are many windows around it. Although Zhang Su changed the painting style of Hogwarts into a mess, the result still couldn't keep up with Dumbledore's shot. Like Zhang Su, there are many Muggle-born wizards who are as confused as Zhang Su. Zhang Su guesses that they have already settled down in their hearts. The so-called alien flying saucers are things made by wizards. Just the idea of some kind of magical creature. Walking into the flying saucer, I found that the interior decoration style is the same as that of the Hogwarts castle. The interior space that has been subjected to space magic is very large. Except for the circular public hall in the middle, there are dormitories divided into 4 colleges district. After walking around in the flying saucer suddenly vibrated, and then the passengers felt the floor under their feet rising into the air. At this moment, Zhang Su came to the window on the outer edge of the flying saucer and looked in the direction he was going. In the end, it didn't matter if you didn't read it. After reading it, A hole got stuck in Zhang Su's throat, almost choking him to death. In front of the flying saucer, a large group of Thestrals were pulling the flying saucer forward. Zhang Su, who originally wanted to ask Lao Deng about the core power system data of this flying saucer, gave up the idea of buying one. The journey was safe. Zhang Su was worried about being intercepted by Tornado fighter jets or Mirage 2000 fighter jets did not happen. Just as the sun was about to set, the Hogwarts party arrived at Boxburton School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Looking at Boxburton Castle and the familiar scenery around the castle through the porthole in the air, Zhang Su felt quite emotional. It has been several years since I came to Boxburton's last time. So many things have happened in these few years, enough to fill a novel with hundreds of thousands of words, and last time only Mrs. Maxim brought hibiscus to welcome Zhang Su. The welcoming ceremony this time was naturally more formal and lively than the last one, but it was much smaller than the Triwizard Tournament. After all, it was just a competition organized by the schools themselves. After stepping off the flying saucer, Zhang Su, as the team leader, walked towards Mrs. Maxim, who was staring at the flying saucer with Dumbledore. At this moment, Zhang Su saw a middle-aged man wearing Durmstrang's traditional costume standing beside Mrs. Maxim. During the pleasantries between Dumbledore and the middle-aged man, Zhang Su learned that he was Durmstrang's new headmaster, Sepp Herberger. While the school leaders were talking in front of them, Zhang Su looked for acquaintances he knew back then among the students who served as background boards. Back then, Zhang Su made many friends here besides Furin. Over the years, everyone's correspondence has basically never stopped, but there are not many students who are still in Boxburtons, and many of them have graduated in the past few years up. From the conversation between the principals, it was known that the Hogwarts and Durmstrang personnel who came to participate in the competition came first, while the representatives from other schools who came to watch the competition and discuss expanding the scale of the competition came later. So Mrs. Maxim called his students and asked him to take Zhang Su and other team members to the cafeteria to rest first, while the principals were waiting outside. As soon as they walked into the gate of Boxburton Castle, out of the sight of the principals, Zhang Su and the Boxburton students who guided them immediately chatted shoulder to shoulder. "Long time no see. Just how are you doing recently?" Zhang Su greeted. "It's definitely not as good as you just said. You, the robber who picked the most beautiful flowers of Boxburtons, why are you here again? This time you plan to pick a few flowers again. It seems that I will let you the beauties of Boxburtons hide first, lest they fall into your hands. This is just Fantine, my friend." Zhang Su introduced to the Hogwarts Quidditch players behind him. "He is an enthusiastic person. If you need help with anything, you can come to him." "Hi everyone, friends from Hogwarts. Just Fantine," greeted the Hogwarts team members. "You can come to me for anything during this period of time. Of course, I want to get to know you. You don't need to look for me if you have beautiful girls in Boxburton, because the most beautiful girl in Boxburton has been snatched by Zhang. You have to keep a few girls for me. Could it be that you haven't found a girlfriend until now?" Zhang Su asked in surprise. "Every time you write, you say that you are going to get a girlfriend. If he didn't talk about the little tricks of making potions all by himself when he was dating a girl, maybe he would already have a girlfriend by now." A girl who came out of the cafeteria said to Zhang Su said, "Hello, Johnny." Zhang Su greeted the girl who had just appeared. "Don't you also like pharmacy? If just talks about pharmacy when dating you, wouldn't it suit your appetite?" "He never asked me for a date." Johnny shrugged and said. Immediately afterwards, Johnny said to several girls in the Hogwarts team, "I am Isabelle Johnny, and I will be responsible for your accommodation during this time." At this moment, Zhang Su poked Just Fontaine with his elbow, and said quietly, "Did you hear that? Johnny is sitting and hinting that you should ask her out." Just Fontaine said with an unnatural expression, "You also know that we are neighbors who grew up together. I know her too well, so it's not easy to start." Zhang Su was speechless and could only sigh and pat him on the shoulder. Next, Zhang Su introduced all the Quidditch players to Just Fontaine and Isabelle Johnny, and then the group followed the two tour guides into the cafeteria and arranged them at a long table. On another table not far away, players from the Durmstrang Quidditch team who had arrived earlier sat. Just as Just Fontaine and Isabelle Johnny were introducing Boxburton Castle to the Hogwarts guests, Zhang Su's eyes were suddenly covered by a pair of small palms from behind. Chapter 319 Making Friends in 5 Lakes and 4 Seas. Realizing that his eyes were covered by a pair of small hands, Zhang Su habitually stretched out his hands and flicked them behind him, only to miss. After shaking his hands back and forth, Zhang Su took off his hands covering his eyes after realizing that there was nothing behind him. Well, it was taken down literally. At this moment, Zhang Su realized that what covered his eyes was a pair of fake hands similar to dolls. Looking back, Zhang Su found Gabriel waving to him on the long table not far behind him. Sitting next to Gabriel were several students who were about her age. Then Zhang Su responded by waving his hands, and tapped the fake hands a few times with his magic wand. I saw that pair of fake hands flew towards Gabriel, and then held her face and rubbed it for a long time, which made several students who were also young beside her burst out laughing. The entry threshold for new students in each magic school is different. Hogwarts has a special quill that writes down the names of every magically capable British child when they are born, ensuring that admission letters are sent to all magically capable children at the proper time except for Zhang Su. All Hogwarts students were selected in this way. In Japan, wizards start going to magic institutes at the age of 7. In China, relevant departments in various county-level administrative regions have detected newborn alchemists using a tool similar to the quill pen in Hogwarts. The staff of the department will come to understand the relevant situation. The staff will also do the corresponding explanation work. Then the staff will advise the parents of the child to send the child to the magic school run by the prefectural-level administrative region, where the child was born, to receive 9-year compulsory education after the child reaches the school age. After graduating from junior high school, young alchemists basically learned how to control mana, and also mastered the spells used in daily household. As for whether they will take the magic side or the science side in the future, it depends on their own choice. On the French side, Beauxbatons admission requirements are no secret. The school has a way to detect wizards whose magical powers meet the admission requirements. Some talented children can study in Beauxbatons 2 or 3 years earlier, or they can come again when you are 11 years old. So occasionally there will be a few students who are a few years younger than students of the same level in Beauxbatons at the beginning. Fleur could go to Beauxbaton at the age of 8 like Gabriel, but her mother was pregnant with Gabriel that year, and his father happened to be busy with work that year, so she gave up early. Chance to come to Beauxbatons, stay home with a pregnant mother, and then newborn sister Fioren's cooking skills have also been learned since then. Because of Beauxbatons policy, Zhang Su was never worried that Gabriel could not find friends of similar age in school. After greeting Gabriel and telling her to find her after the dinner, Zhang Su continued to act as the glue between the Hogwarts players and Beauxbatons students. The purpose of the 3-school Quidditch competition is to enhance communication between schools. If the visiting team just sits there stupidly like a brick and does not communicate with the home students like strangers, then the meaning of this competition will be reduced a lot. So Zhang Su kept calling out those friends he knew before to get acquainted with Hogwarts students, and at the same time, he did translation for some French students who could not speak English. As long as he doesn't say numbers, Zhang Su's French is quite fluent now. After coming here for a while, the students in the cafeteria made a commotion. A Beauxbaton student led a group of oriental-faced wizards in golden robes into the cafeteria and sat opposite Zhang Su and the others. Zhang Su learned from the conversation between the principals just now that among the audience of the other 5 schools, there were also students from their school's Quidditch team. So now this group of people is undoubtedly students from the Japanese Institute of Magic, and the golden robes on their bodies represent that they are all elite members of the Magic Institute. If it was at Hogwarts, Dumbledore would definitely not arrange the students of the Institute of Magic within 10 meters of Zhang Su. But it is estimated that Mrs. Maxim does not know the grievances between Zhang Su and the Magic Institute, but the seat was arranged on the basis of the abacus that fellow villagers would meet fellow villagers so that they would be easy to talk to. But after Zhang Su glanced at the students in the Magic Institute, he concluded that they would not fight this time. Not long after the students of the Magic Institute sat down, someone noticed that there were also 2 Asian faces on the opposite side of the long table. "Hello, I'm Yamada Ginin from the Magic Institute." A student from the Magic Institute sitting opposite Zhang Su greeted him in English. "Hi, my name is Zhang Su, from Hogwarts." Zhang Su greeted him in Japanese. Just after the 2 of them finished their self-introduction and chatted for a while, another group of people walked into the cafeteria. You can tell by the skin color that this is a group of wizards from the Wagadu School of Magic in Uganda. It could be seen that Beauxbaton planned to arrange students from 4 colleges on this long table. Students from Hogwarts and the Institute of Witchcraft and Wizardry occupied half of the long table. And Zhang Su happened to be sitting at the farthest side of the row at Hogwarts, and a student from Wagadu happened to be sitting next to him. "Hi, my name is DJ Drogba." The Ouagadougou student sitting next to Zhang Su greeted him, We seem to have met somewhere. Zhang Su knew a lot of black people, but he definitely didn't know this one in front of him. But when he said this, Zhang Su seemed to think that he looked familiar. After thinking for about a minute, Zhang Su clapped his hands and said happily, I remembered, we met in the camp during the one Quidditch World Cup. At that time, the three of you were roasting rabbits, and I asked you about rabbits. Where did I get the call? I didn't expect that we could meet here. My name is Zhang Su, by the way. DJ Drogba also remembered the details at that time, and while reaching out to shake hands with Zhang Su, he said, I was roasting rabbits with my father and younger brother, and you gave us a bag of rice. Of course. With this opportunity, the two chatted about the riots after the World Cup that year. Unfortunately, Didier Drogba's tent was burned down during the riots, but everyone was fine. In the end, they got a gift from the British Ministry of Magic for $5. Tent compensation. At this time, Yamada Ginning also joined their topic. Only then did Zhang Su know that he was also in the camp back then, and he injured his head because of wrestling while running. Not long after, a group of wizards in fur coats walked into the cafeteria and came towards their table. Fortunately, Boxbutton was located on a high mountain, and the temperature in April was not too high, otherwise they would have suffered from heat stroke. When this group of wizards who knew they were from Catastores, Russia approached a long table, one of the students saw Zhang Su, his eyes lit up, and he stepped up a few steps to the seat next to Champion Ginnin, and said to him. Zhang Su stretched out his right hand. I remember you, the Wizard of Catastores said to Zhang Su, on the night of the Quidditch World Cup, you got drunk and took away our Tanya. My name is Alexander Romanov, well, another wizard who was involved in the Quidditch World Cup that year. Zhang Su stood up, shook hands with him, and said, I'm Zhang Su from Hogwarts. Let's have a drink if we have a chance. After speaking, Zhang Su took out a vodka stone with his left hand and shook it in front of Alexander Romanov. Alexander Romanov understood immediately, and the smile on his face grew even wider. For a while, the four students from the four magic academies in the middle of the long table chatted happily. Students from Alvermorny and Castrobusher also came to Boxburton shortly after, where they sat with Durmstrang's students, led by Boxburton's students. After the students were seated, the 8 principals entered the cafeteria together and sat down at the innermost VIP seats. The host, Mrs. Maxim, and the oldest Professor Dumbledore sat in the middle, while the rest of the headmasters sat on both sides. Chapter 320 Nicole Flamel and number 039, S. Last Gift. Greek letter sigma degree degree. At the dining table, the twin brother Hirano Yamada, who was sitting next to Ginnin Yamada, looked at the Hogwarts students sitting opposite them, skillfully using the transfiguration charm to turn the knife and fork on the table into a pair of chopsticks, and then clean up the Japanese dishes such as sushi, tempura and oden in front of them. Hiramitsu Yamada, who is not used to Western food, originally thought that no one would rob him of today's meal. Who would have thought that just as soon as he got himself a bowl of udon noodles, the Japanese food on the table was eaten by more than a dozen pairs of noodles. The chopsticks were cleaned up until there were only a few dumplings left. Degree Cyrillic letter D degree. Why are you so proficient? How many times have you used chopsticks? Are you willing to starve me to death? If Zhang Su could understand his inner thoughts, he would tell him that it is not a year or two since these guys competed with him in the hot pot in the name of training finger dexterity. Not to mention that the Quidditch team had strengthened their training a while ago, and every night after training, a group of people would go to the kitchen for extra meals. Especially Harry Potter, who has always been shamelessly snatching a lot of meatballs from Zhang Su's hot pot on the grounds that seekers need to practice finger dexterity. Time went back to 10 minutes ago. With the leaders seated, the welcome banquet officially began. The first is the leadership speech session. The 8 principals that Zhang Su was most worried about did not take turns to speak. After Madame Maxim welcomed the guests as the host, and Dumbledore thanked the host for the hospitality as the guest representative, the leader's speech ended and lasted less than 10 minutes. Like the table at Hogwarts, Boxbutton's table was filled with all kinds of delicacies in an instant. Since today's guests come from 5 continents, the food on the table also takes into account the preferences of the guests. In addition to common European cuisine, food from Africa also appears on today's table. Unlike the boiled monkeys and grilled crocodiles in Zhang Su's impression, there are still many good things in Africa. Kushali rice with rice, macaroni, chickpeas, lentils and onions and a tomato vinaigrette, muamba chicken fried in palm oil with garlic, okra and chili, and black on the outside and red on the inside, soft and refreshing biltong. Although these don't look exquisite, they have a special flavor when you try them occasionally, but it's a bit reluctant to use them as a staple food, and even African friends don't take a look at them. And a group of foodies at Hogwarts, imitating Zhang Su's eat what you haven't eaten before eating method, launched a big raid on Japanese cuisine. A welcome dinner was enjoyed by the host and guests, and then everyone left. Zhang Su told the Hogwarts players about tomorrow's activities, visited Boxburton in the morning, went to the stadium in the afternoon to familiarize themselves with the venue, then asked Just Fontaine about the location of his dormitory, and finally handed the players to Jess after Tefontaine and Isabel Adjani took them back to the dormitory. They left the cafeteria with Gabriel, who was waiting by the side. Without further ado, Zhang Su handed over all the snacks he brought to Gabriel, walked around the garden with her, and then returned to Boxburton's boys' dormitory. As soon as he walked into the public hall of the dormitory, the huge noise mixed with the smell of alcohol rushed towards Zhang Su like a huge wave in a tsunami. Oh, cheers to the snitch, oh cheers to the one for Quidditch. Blow on the bottle. Zhang Su didn't expect that he just walked around with Gabriel for more than an hour, and the dormitory had already drunk it. At this time, the boys from the 8 schools have already drunk together, and the language barrier can no longer stop these guys. They just need to raise their glasses or bottles to each other, and then shout in their native languages all kinds of toasts, and the last mouthful was suffocated. Uefaraki Yamamiyo Hiramitsu Yamada, who is already drunk, came to Zhang Su with a glass of wine, and Zhang Su picked up a glass of wine from the table beside him and confronted him with boredom. It's just that Zhang Su looked at the badge of Azamiya pinned to Yamada Bagwang's robe, and it seemed that this guy's position was not firm. Professor Dumbledore, you can have a drink too. Ron's voice startled Zhang Su, who had just drunk Drogba. Looking around, Dumbledore walked into the public room at some point. Zhang Su hurried over and asked, "Professor, what's the matter?" Dumbledore looked around the lobby of the common room with corpses all over the field speechlessly, and then said to Zhang Su, "Can you come with me, Zhang?" Zhang Su hadn't drunk enough to answer no, and followed Dumbledore out of the boys' dormitory after he let go of the alcohol. Zhang Su followed Dumbledore down the stairs in Boxburton's castle, and finally came to a door in the basement. Standing in front of the gate, Zhang Su could feel the magic fluctuations on the gate that could be described as surging. Seeing Zhang Su's surprised expression, Dumbledore smiled, and then said, "This is my old friend's laboratory. If the defense is insufficient, sometimes some small accidents will blow up Boxburton Castle." Zhang Su really wanted to ask what would happen if it was a big accident, but at this time Dumbledore began to lift the lock on the door. To Zhang Su, being fortunate enough to see Nicole May's laboratory during his lifetime is no less meaningful than bragging and drinking tea in the elder's study. Nicole May sent a letter to Zhang Su a few days before his death, in which he mentioned that he was caught by Dumbledore in the last days of his life and worked overtime to help old Deng Bai, and also said that if Zhang Su has the opportunity to come to Boxburton's with Dumbledore in the future, he will leave some small gifts for Zhang Su in his laboratory. After several minutes, Dumbledore opened the door, and Zhang Su followed him into Nicholas May's laboratory. Nicole May had obviously taken care of the laboratory well before leaving, and all kinds of equipment and utensils were neatly packed, as if the owner would continue to use them the next day. On a long table in the laboratory are 2 huge wooden boxes, one of which is labeled for Dumbledore and the other is labeled for Zhang Su. Zhang Su and Dumbledore walked to their respective boxes. Zhang Su saw a large bunch of keys in front of the box given to him. This box was open with different keys, and a corresponding magically expanded space would appear inside. After Zhang Su inspected all the spaces in the box, he found that except for one space containing some precious alchemy books, the other spaces were filled with antique furniture, utensils, artworks and other antiques from the French Bourbon period. At this time, Zhang Su had mixed feelings in his heart. For ordinary people, these are priceless antiques. For wizards, the most valuable things are those books. Fortunately, Zhang Su's head was more inclined to ordinary people, so he accepted the gift from Nicholas with a smile. At this time, Dumbledore also finished checking the box left by Nicholas May, and then greeted Zhang Su to leave the laboratory. When the two left the laboratory with their items, the door of the laboratory closed automatically, and then a burst of colored light lit up. From now on, only those who meet the conditions approved by Nicholas can enter this laboratory. Dumbledore sighed deeply. After Zhang Su heard this, his head was full of black lines. He never thought that Nicholas May would leave such an adventure in Boxburton Castle before leaving. But it's no wonder why Nicole May said in the letter to Zhang Su that those antiques were just little gifts. In the world of wizards, compared with the knowledge left in the laboratory, these antiques were given to Zhang Su is similar to finding someone to collect waste. Chapter 321 The Giant Panda Cup and the 8 Schools Quidditch Tournament. After receiving the small gift left by Nicholas May, Zhang Su, who wanted to go back to the dormitory, was caught by Dumbledore. After following Dumbledore out of the castle, Zhang Su knew what Nicholas May left for Dumbledore under Dumbledore's explanation. As early as 4 years ago, after Hogwarts became rich, Dumbledore started planning to make new transportation for the school. The rich and willful Dumbledore naturally wants to make a transport that is different from other magic school transports. It was only during the design stage that Dumbledore discovered that the energy supply of this vehicle was a big problem. So Dumbledore found Nicole May, who was still alive at the time, and asked him to help solve this problem. Nicole May finally agreed to Dumbledore's request, and helped refine a lot of low-end versions of the Sorcerer's Stone while saving the life-sustaining potion. These low-end versions of the magic stone can't be used as life-sustaining medicine, nor can they be used to turn stones into gold. They can only be used as high-efficiency magic batteries. After installing these magic stones, it doesn't need to use thestrals to pull them. Dumbledore said to Zhang Panda, who was loading pieces of heavy low-grade magic stones into the energy cabin. The box containing the low-end Sorcerer's Stone is naturally enchanted, but it is still very heavy to carry. There are many low-end Sorcerer's Stones in the space expanded by magic. Moreover, the density of these low-allocation magic stones is not small, and the weight of a large piece is almost equal to a full gas tank. Because they are rich in magic, the levitation charm does not work on them, so Zhang Su can only move and install these low-end magic stones after turning into a giant panda. It's no wonder why Lao Deng didn't come over in advance to pull back these low-end magic stones, but drove the flying saucer over and installed them. Professor, why is this made into a flying saucer? Panda Zhang asked Dumbledore a question that he wanted to ask during the day. Dumbledore replied, because this shape is more suitable for using thestral to pull it when the magic power is insufficient. After its own magic power is sufficient, its shape can change into another shape suitable for its own flight. What kind of shape is that? Panda Zhang asked curiously. You'll know when you install all these Sorcerer's Stones. Dumbledore smiled and closed the door. Zhang Da Panda was speechless. This guy could turn into a second stage. After more than 20 minutes, Zhang Da Panda installed all the low-end magic stones, and put all the extra low-end magic stones into the warehouse. After Zhang Su and Dumbledore stepped out of the flying saucer, they saw Dumbledore casting a spell on the flying saucer. Under the moonlight, the flying saucer parked on the lawn, reflecting the moonlight, slowly elongated from the shape of a disc, and then turned into a space shuttle. Regarding this space shuttle with the Hogwarts school emblem, Zhang Su is already very calm, and he is too lazy to complain anymore. Even if this guy becomes the Archangel of the United Earth Army, it doesn't matter. This is for you. Dumbledore handed Zhang Su a copper key that was big enough to kill someone. It can be started with this key. Dumbledore said to Zhang Su, there are 2 such keys, and the other one is in Minerva's hand. Zhang Su nodded and took the key and put it away. Besides Professor McGonagall, Zhang Su can naturally figure out why Dumbledore gave him a key. Whether it is escape or support, this space shuttle can be used. Does it have a name? Zhang Su asked suddenly. Well, I didn't think about it, Dumbledore replied. So Zhang Su took out his wand and gestured at the space shuttle a few times, and a line of characters appeared under the nose of the space shuttle. L. Percival Walford Briangelador and NBSP. Zhang Su put away his wand, smiled and said to Dumbledore, I think this name is good. Dumbledore was stunned for a moment, and then said nothing, acquiescing to Zhang Su naming the space shuttle Old Den. After tossing about this, Dumbledore and Zhang Su returned to Boxburton Castle. Before parting, Dumbledore reminded Zhang Su not to forget to have a meeting in the conference room at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Dividing line at 9 o'clock in the morning the next day, after breakfast, Zhang Su followed Dumbledore to the conference room of Boxburton Castle. Not long after, the 8 principals all came to the meeting room. Not only Dumbledore brought Zhang Su, but the other 7 principals also brought the captains of their respective schools' Quidditch teams. The topic of today's meeting is to determine the general direction of the 8 schools' Quidditch competition. As the most prestigious existence among the principals, Dumbledore was naturally the first to speak at the meeting. After Lao Deng said a few polite words, He asked Zhang Su to throw out several topics and several sets of plans that he had prepared earlier for everyone to discuss. The first topic that Zhang Su first raised was a proposal to make a championship trophy made of nearly 10 kilograms of gold and silver for the competition at his own expense, which was quickly approved by the principals unanimously. Everyone knows that Zhang Su is the initiator of the 3-school Quidditch competition, and he can also be said to be the father of the 8-school Quidditch competition in the future, so everyone gave him a face. As for the shape of the trophy, which is a giant panda holding a golden snitch and riding a broomstick, since it was paid by Zhang Su, everyone recognized it. Anyway, giant pandas are cute too. The second issue is that the competition is officially named the 8-School Quidditch Championship. The sponsoring organization is the 8-School Quidditch Association Alliance. The principals who serve as the chairman of the alliance are arranged according to the school's establishment time. In addition, relevant provisions have been added for other wizarding schools to join individually or jointly. The terms of joint joining of magic schools was proposed by Zhang Su for his country to join the competition in the future. After all, there are too many schools teaching magic in China, so they can only join together to count as one quota, so that everyone is willing to play with you. The issue is passed in just 2 minutes. Everyone has discussed these issues in private before, and today everyone raises their hands to make a decision, which is to go through a process. The third issue is the timing of the event. It is initially set to be held every 4 years, and the season is set as a multi-year event according to the characteristics of each school year. The first season of the game is set as the 9900 season to fill the 4-year gap between the 2 Quidditch World Cups and increase the popularity of the game. This meant that Zhang Su and the others would not be able to participate in the first 8-school Quidditch competition, but Zhang Su didn't feel sorry for it either. After all, he was the prototype of the championship trophy. The fourth topic is the selection of the competition system. At the meeting, 2 plans were initially selected, namely the group stage and the knockout stage. The specific choice of the plan will be discussed later. However, it seems that the call for the group stage plan is higher at present, because in this way, each school will participate in more games and avoid the one-game situation in the knockout stage. There are also issues related to the schedule, home and away games, etc., which will be discussed later. Then there are questions about the opening of the game, the sponsor of the game and so on. However, there are mature examples such as the Quidditch League and the Quidditch World Cup to learn from these issues, so after the general direction is determined, we will leave it for later. This is a rally of unity, a rally of victory, a rally of encouragement, and a rally of forge ahead. This conference marks a new era of communication among the world's schools of magic. At the end of the meeting, just in time for lunch, the participants walked out of the meeting room talking and laughing, and walked towards Boxburton's cafeteria. Dumbledore walked out of the office with Mrs. Maxime and Sepp Herberger, discussing with them how to keep the original 3-school Quidditch competition and become the 3-year period during which the 8-school Quidditch tournament was blank friendly match. But Zhang Su was fine, and walked towards the cafeteria together with Gabriel, who was waiting for him near the conference room. Chapter 322 Malfoy and number 039, S Trouble. The biggest difference between this 3-school Quidditch competition and previous competitions is that the schedule is tight. 3 games will be played in 5 days, which has become the biggest attraction of this competition. Everyone already knows the schedule. The first game is the host Boxburtons vs. Hogwarts. The second game is Hogwarts and Durmstrang. The last game is Hogwarts. Boxburtons against Durmstrang. The schedule is in favor of the hosts, and the other 2 visiting teams need to play 2 games in a row. It can be seen that this competition is a great test for the physical and mental strength of the Hogwarts players. Therefore, in the field suitability training held in the afternoon of the first day, Zhang Su and his teammates did not engage in too intense exercise, but just flew a few laps on the Quidditch field in Boxburtons to familiarize themselves with the field, chasers, and goalkeepers. After doing shooting and saving practice together for a while, the seekers walked around the field to observe carefully. After warming up and sweating, everyone stopped and gathered on the lawn in the middle of the court to discuss tomorrow's tactics. Due to not knowing the current technical characteristics of Boxburton's side, Durmstrang may make targeted arrangements for the second game, so everyone unanimously decided to adopt the most aggressive tactics arranged by Mr. Brian Clough, in order to catch the opponent by surprise, and then see if the situation is to continue to attack or shrink the defense. If there is an opportunity to take advantage of in the game, then increase the strength of the attack and try to score more points. If nothing can be done, then shrink the defense and fight back, and put the winner in the hands of the seeker. After the pre-war tactical meeting was over, everyone packed up and left. Seeing a group of people leaving the stadium talking and laughing, Zhang Su knew that he didn't have to worry about their spirits this time. Mr. Brian Clough was worried that 2 games in 3 days would cause serious psychological pressure on the players. Now it seems that he underestimated the psychological endurance of this group of students. This group of students has encountered many major incidents in the past few years, and their nerves have long been trained enough. In terms of mentality, Zhang Su feels that there is nothing to worry about. In addition, the technical and tactical level of this group of players is quite good, which makes everyone seem to have a great advantage now. The situation at the start of the official game was similar to what everyone expected in the pre-war meeting. In the match against Spokesbuttons on the second day, the Hogwarts players didn't give the host any face at the beginning, and they scored 3 goals in a row before they could react. After Spokesbuttons players recovered, they launched a fierce attack on Hogwarts goal. Fortunately, Ron performed well, allowing Hogwarts to stabilize their position. Hogwarts saw Ron showing great power today, so he fought against Spokesbuttons without any worries. However, in the days when Hogwarts Quidditch players were honoring the school in France, something unexpected, or for some people expected, happened at Hogwarts. In the early hours of the morning, Malfoy led 3 people out of the common room of the snake yard. "Falinio, go to the kitchen and see if there is anyone there," Malfoy said to a boy beside him. The boy named Falinio nodded, and then walked quietly towards the kitchen. After a few minutes, Falinio came back and said to Malfoy, "There's no one in the kitchen anymore." Malfoy nodded, then turned his head and said to a girl behind him, "Onagus, go ahead, be careful of Filch and the ghost, we will follow behind." Onagus nodded, cast a disillusionment spell on himself and set off. After waiting for a while, Malfoy and the others also set off according to the previously scheduled route. The 3 people that Malfoy brought out tonight were all his friends in the snake yard. Although the 3 of them were not Malfoy's followers like Crabbe and Goyle, they were also very playful friends. Unlike Crabbe and Goyle, these 3 are not only powerful, but also very smart. A while ago, when Malfoy participated in the activities of the Defense Association in the maze, he pretended to accidentally ask why the logo of the Defense Association in the response room was not moved into the maze. After Malfoy picked up the rhythm, he stopped talking. At this time, among the students participating in the Defense Association activities, many people were interested in this proposal. Since everyone was driven here by Percy, this made everyone very worried about the situation of the Defense Association, and they were afraid that they would be explicitly banned by Percy one day. If the logo of the Defense Association was moved to the maze, it would have the meaning of formally reorganizing the Defense Association outside, so everyone agreed with the proposal to move the logo of the Defense Association. Then Malfoy stood up and volunteered to take over the task of secretly bringing out the sign at night, and pulled Falinio, Onagus and Moschino to act with him. According to Malfoy's own calculations, Falinio can help him. Onagus, who is proficient in the disillusionment spell, can scout the way ahead, and the small Moschino can be sent to lure Filch away when necessary. The ideal is very full, but the reality is a little less fleshy. On the stairs on the second floor, Malfoy and his party almost ran into Filch, who was watching the night. Fortunately, Onagus discovered Mrs. Norris, who got behind a pair of armor in time. After her reminder, Malfoy and the others can only go around from other places. As a result, they hadn't gone far when they turned their heads and met Peeves, who was sitting and preparing to play a prank. Fortunately, Falinio could make the sound of the Bloody Baron's speech so vivid that it scared Peeves away. Malfoy and his party finally came to the room of response without any danger. Stepping into the response room, which had been transformed into what it used to be for the Defense Society, Malfoy asked Anidius and Moschino to watch outside. He and Falinio walked under the Defense Society sign. The symbol of the Defense Society is a flag with the Society's emblem painted on it, which has been hung here for many years. Malfoy and Falinio took down the Defense Association's sign hanging on the wall, and sent it to the center of the maze without any risk. After rehanging the flag on the tree wall in the center of the maze, Malfoy and the others breathed a sigh of relief. Unlike the other 3, the real reason why Malfoy was relieved was that the other 3 didn't notice the strangeness of this flag. Just after Malfoy and the others left the maze, an unknown stupid bird on the tree wall of the maze watched them walk back to the Hogwarts castle, and then flew into the depths of the maze. Chapter 323, Burning the Zhangjialao. The last game of the 3-school Quidditch competition is about to start. In the stands of the Quidditch Stadium, Zhang Su, Drogba, Romanov, and the Amida brothers sat in the audience and talked about the last game, Hogwarts vs. Durmstrang. It was just that when they were chatting, the other people looked at Gabriel, who had been sticking to Zhang Su every chance she got these days, with subtle eyes after they learned that Gabriel was Zhang Su's sister-in-law. They were so jealous that they broke up. The game the day before yesterday could be described as tragic. Durmstrang used killing tactics at the beginning of the game. Fred was carried out in less than 2 minutes of the opening, and his position was replaced by the all-around substitute Zhang Su. Although Zhang Su can also play impressively at the batter position, compared to the twin brothers who have a tacit understanding, the power of the combination of Zhang Su and George is still a bit lower. However, 5 minutes later, Ron was turned into a deliberate quaffle by a Durmstrang chaser. From then on, the atmosphere on the court became heated. Zhang Su and George kept using bludgers to greet Durmstrang players' heads, as if they would lose if they didn't hit half of them. Until the bloody Harry Potter caught the snitch at the end, half of the players on Hogwarts' side had been changed, and all the players on the field were injured, while there were no players on Durmstrang's side could be changed. Fortunately, Ron, who was slightly injured, still played well, and George used his body to help him block the bludger several times before being carried off the field, which made Durmstrang's scoring rate not high. When Harry Potter finally caught the snitch, Hogwarts was only 50 points behind. It's just that when Gabriel applied medicine to Zhang Su's unlucky nose after the game, Zhang felt that he should be injured more seriously. Hogwarts, a 2-game winning team, now has a net margin of 270 points. In theory, one of Boxburton's and Durmstrang won a massacre victory, and after scoring 130 points, they grabbed the Golden Snitch, in order to win the final championship. Just when the match was about to start, Dumbledore called Zhang Su away. Dumbledore, who was stern in the corridor behind the Quidditch pitch, handed Zhang Su a copy of the Daily Prophet. On the headlines of the front page, there was another photo of the Black Devil logo floating in the night sky, but the location of this photo was a bit special. Below the Black Devil logo was Zhang Su's villa, which was burning with raging fire. Dumbledore looked at Zhang Su's twitching face and didn't know how to comfort him. He couldn't say something like, "This is the case, don't be sad." At this time, Zhang Su was already burning with anger. Although he was ready for Voldemort and the Death Eaters to attack him, he never thought that they would burn his house down. Isn't the old horse afraid that he will tie the pony to a stone? Did it sink to the bottom of the lake? Although there was nothing particularly valuable in that villa, except for the laptop computer containing the complete works of Harry Potter novels, it didn't mean that they could be burned by the Death Eaters. Especially the books in the study room are almost all copies of the Slytherin collection, many of which are treasures that dark wizards dream of. If the Death Eaters scoured the mansion before burning it down, thinking of this, Zhang Su's mind suddenly flashed, and he thought of something. "Professor, I have to go back immediately," Zhang Su said to Dumbledore with a dark face. "Okay," Dumbledore replied simply. Next, Dumbledore directly turned that copy of the Daily Prophet into a portkey, and then handed it over to Zhang Su. It took Zhang Su 2 minutes to say hello to the friends he just met, and made an appointment to write to everyone when he was free. Min comforted the pouting Gabriel, and finally activated the portkey by the side of the Quidditch pitch and left. The destination of the door key was near Zhang Su's villa. Zhang Su, who had just landed, accidentally stepped on a stone and slipped. Fortunately, someone on the side helped him in time. Zhang Su turned his head to thank the kind-hearted people, but after seeing the person who helped him clearly, his eyes immediately became sharp. I don't have one. I can make a written statement," Lucius Malfoy said, shaking his hands at a frequency of 20 Hz. "Then who is it?" Zhang Su squinted at the old horse and said, "I can't betray that woman." Lucius Malfoy continued shaking his head. "If I find out that this matter is related to you, you can go to the bottom of the lake to find your son," the murderous Zhang Su said to the old horse. Then Zhang Su ignored Lucius Malfoy, who had been waiting here for a fear of his precious son being angered, and walked straight to the scene of the fire. The old horse had revealed enough information just now in order to keep his son, and he had already pointed out the culprit. Zhang Su's villa was completely destroyed by fire. Until now, there is still a lot of white smoke floating in the ruins. Many residents of Hogsmeade watched from the outside. They all gave way when they saw Zhang Su came back. Zhang Su passed by the owner of the Honeydukes candy shop. When Mr. Froom was around, Mr. Froom stuffed Zhang Su with a bag of candy, telling him not to be too sad. Beside the ruins of the villa, Professor McGonagall in Scarlet stood next to Minister of Magic Fudge and Auror Office Director Rufus Scrimgeour, watching several Aurors looking for useful clues in the ruins. When several people saw the dark-faced Zhang Su approaching, they greeted him one after another. Zhang Su went directly to Fudge, the Minister of Magic, and questioned him in an emotionless voice. Mr. Minister, when a man escaped from Azkaban 3 years ago, there were many people around Hogwarts and Hogsmeade. Few Dementors are guarding. But this time dozens of people escaped from Azkaban, and there have even been incidents of escaped escapees attacking people near Hogsmeade. Why haven't we seen half a Dementor at this time? At this time, Fudge has changed a lot from when he came to Hogwarts before the start of school last year. His hairline has moved a lot, and his whole body is a lot haggard. In the face of Zhang Su's questioning, he could only say something like I am a British country with its own national conditions again, and he did not have the momentum to be the head of a British department at all. Rufus Scrimgeour, who was watching, frowned up. Seeing him like this, Zhang Su didn't want to trouble him anymore, so he found the reliable Rufus Scrimgeour. Rufus Scrimgeour introduced to Zhang Su the relevant information they knew so far. The first person to notice the fire was a drunkard who came out of the Pig's Head bar at 3 o'clock in the morning. At the same time, he also saw the rising Black Devil sign. By the time the Aurors arrived, the fire was out of control. According to the on-site inspection by the Aurors afterwards, it was only known that someone had cast the Fierce Sapphire curse on the house several times, but other than that, no other useful clues were found. After Zhang Su listened to Scrimgeour's narration, he asked a few questions. After learning that Hogsmeade and even the whole of England had no second attack by Death Eaters last night, Zhang Su walked into the ruins. After walking into the ruins, Zhang Su discovered that Professor Flitwick was also shuttling among the ruins, looking for clues in the ruins like the Aurors. I'm sorry to trouble you, Professor Flitwick. Zhang Su thanked the disheartened Professor Flitwick. You're back, Zhang. After Professor Flitwick looked up and saw Zhang Su, he cast a cleaning spell on himself, making himself as clean and tidy as he was in class. How can I trouble you, Professor? Zhang Su said to Professor Flitwick embarrassedly. They were careless and missed a lot of clues. Professor Flitwick pointed to the nearby Aurors and said, they even got the wrong number of wizards who cast a Fierce Sapphire curse. The few Aurors named by Professor Flitwick had nothing to say. After all, they were all students of Professor Flitwick back then. Zhang Su, who had already figured it out, took Professor Flitwick and Rufus Scrimgeour directly to the study room, turned over a few pieces of charcoal, and found a piece of metal that had been slightly deformed by the fire from under the charcoal. Then a small piece of melted metal inlaid in wood was found not far away. Holding these two pieces of metal in both hands, Zhang Su said to Scrimgeour, who was standing beside him, there is a door with a lock at this location, and the two in my hand are the lock body and the lock box. Now that the two things are separated, it means that the door that was closed was left open when it was on fire. Scrimgeour immediately called a few Aurors who were conducting a clueless inspection in the ruins, and asked them to look for traces of the door locks according to the locations of the rooms Zhang Su pointed out. The Aurors had no way of knowing some details about the house, so they could only rely on Zhang Su to provide them with clues. After a few minutes, the Aurors found that all the doors to the rooms were unlocked. Hearing this news, Zhang Su's face darkened even more. There were some things in his bedroom that Death Eaters couldn't get. Next, Zhang Su and the Aurors searched carefully in the location of the study, and found that apart from the laptop and mobile phone that had been burnt into a pile, the bookshelves in the study had been emptied when the fire caught fire. After searching the study, Zhang Su and Scrimgeour told him to notify him of any new situation, and left the ruins. After all, some places are not easy to check under the eyes of the Aurors. On the way back to Hogwarts after leaving Hogsmeade, Professor McGonagall said to Zhang Su, "Don't be too sad, Mr. Zhang. It's okay, Professor McGonagall. Thank you for coming here early in the morning to help contact the Aurors." Zhang Su shook his head and said to Professor McGonagall, "Money is something outside of your body. If you don't have it, it's gone. Prepare for something like this. By the way, we have won 2 consecutive victories at Boxbuttons. If there is no accident, we will be the champions of this year's 3-school Quidditch competition. You'll just forget it." Scarlet walked on the other side of Zhang Su and didn't give Zhang Su a chance to change the subject. "It doesn't matter if it counts." Zhang Su shrugged and said, "I can't call the door anyway. Professor McGonagall, just don't be too impulsive." "Scarlet, huh?" Professor Flitwick was silent. The group returned to Hogwarts Castle. When they first entered the hall, Hermione, who had just walked out of the corridor leading to the basement, saw Zhang Su, and hurried over to grab Zhang Su and run away. Chapter 324 Dobby and number 039, S labor contract. Hermione, who was pulling Zhang Su, said to him anxiously, "Come and follow me to the kitchen, something happened to Dobby." When Zhang Su heard that Dobby had an accident, his heart sank. After saying goodbye to the three professors, Zhang Su followed Hermione into the kitchen. Walking into the kitchen, Zhang Su saw a house elf bundled into rice dumplings placed on a table, with a thick bandage tied on the house elf's head. "I have to tie up Dobby, otherwise there is no way to prevent him from hurting himself." Hermione whispered to Zhang Su, "I know your house was burned down, but it wasn't his fault." Zhang Su sighed and said, "I'm not stupid enough to put the responsibility of the Death Eaters on Dobby. After all, it was the fire caused by the Death Eaters' arson, not an accident like Dobby forgot to turn off the oven." Walking to the table, Zhang Su saw Dobby's eyes looking at the ceiling were empty and bloodshot. After hearing the sound of footsteps, Dobby turned his head and saw Zhang Su. His whole body immediately writhed violently, like a leech that had been sprinkled with salt. It took Zhang Su a lot of effort to comfort Dobby, who was struggling to climb to the fireplace and tried to burn himself to death, to apologize to Zhang Su, and untied the rope on him, and let him sit on the chair beside the table. Zhang Su took out a piece of parchment from the treasure bag and put it in front of Dobby. Zhang Su said to Dobby, "Dobby, this is the labor contract you signed with me." After Dobby glanced at his signature at the bottom of the parchment, he said in a low voice, "Yes, Mr. Zhang." Zhang Su pointed to the labor contract and said to Dobby, "Look at the exemption clause in the second job content and location." Dobby picked up the parchment, looked at the provisions on it with his big and round eyes, and read it word by word. "When Party B is working, in the event of force majeure such as an earthquake, fire not caused by Party B, natural Party B shall not be liable for any damage to the workplace caused by disasters, wars, wizard attacks, etc." After Dobby finished reading, he raised his head and looked at Zhang Su in shock. "Dobby, you have never read the content of this labor contract, have you?" Zhang Su frowned and said, "I remember I gave you 3 days to go to Professor Dumbledore or Harry understand the contents of the contract." Looking at Dobby's face, Zhang Su realized at this moment that the house elf could make such colorful expressions on his face. Zhang Su knows Dobby's thoughts. Although he is a house elf who is ahead of the trend of the times, some traditional house elf ideas still deeply affect him. As far as the slave is concerned, the thing that the master ordered him to take care of is damaged. Whether it is caused by the slave or not, the slave must be the one who is finally responsible. As for contract workers, everyone should read what the contract says, and if something breaks, see if it is considered force majeure. The train was trampled by Godzilla, so the train conductor can't afford to lose money. At this point, Dobby's head was still overwhelmed. However, this labor contract will be terminated now, Zhang Su said to Dobby with a sigh. Dobby stared wide-eyed when he heard that he was going to be fired, looked at Zhang Su in disbelief and asked, "What's the matter? Is there something wrong with Dobby?" Zhang Su felt that if he didn't explain clearly quickly, Dobby was about to cry. Zhang Su continued pointing to the contract and said, "It's already specified in the contract that your place of work is my villa in Hogsmeade. Now that the villa has been burned down, you can no longer work there, so this contract is terminated." Zhang Su signed the contract with Dobby to hire him to do housekeeping in the villa. Besides, what Zhang Su asked Dobby to do was either to ask Dobby for help, or to count Dobby as a part-time job. So Zhang Su followed the rules and settled this year's wages with Dobby. Half an hour later, Zhang Su promised himself that he would re-employ Dobby after rebuilding the villa, which made Dobby, who was unemployed and howling on the table, quiet down. After reassuring Dobby, Zhang Su asked him to prepare some lunch for himself. He has missed his meal since he came back from the French BIU. Dobby is still an employee of Hogwarts, so it is reasonable to cook for Professor Zhang. Hermione, who was sitting on the sidelines, watched the entire exchange between Zhang Su and Dobby. Only then did she know that Zhang Su and Dobby had signed a labor contract early in the morning. Hermione pointed to the labor contract that was still on the table, and asked Zhang Su, "Do you still need this contract?" "No need." Zhang Su shook his head and said, "This contract has been terminated, so there is no need for it." "Then I will serve," Hermione said while picking up the parchment. This should be the first labor contract signed between a wizard and a house elf. It has unusual historical significance. Watching Hermione put away the parchment, Zhang Su's face cramped a little. After Hermione received the contract, she found Zhang Su looking at her, and asked curiously, "What's wrong?" Zhang Su said to Hermione solemnly, "I can imagine that many years later, Professor Bin said this to the students in the History of Magic class." Mr. Zhang Su signed the first labor contract between a wizard and a house elf in history with Dobby the house elf. Then the students were sleepily taking notes on their seats while complaining to Professor Zhang for why did it appear on the test site again. After listening to Zhang Su's words, Hermione laughed so hard that she fell down on the table. At this moment Dobby, who came over with a plate of sandwiches and 2 glasses of pumpkin juice, looked at Hermione in bewilderment, wondering why she was laughing so hard. Zhang Su picked up a sandwich and said to Hermione, "This kind of thing is really possible. You know, Harry Potter almost became the test site for the History of Magic class. It was just that the year when the textbook was going to be revised, Professor Binns, in order to take care of him, Professor Dumbledore continued to use the old textbooks. However, the textbooks will definitely be updated in the future, and as Harry's friend, maybe you will be a test site that will score at least 1 point." After Zhang Su finished speaking, while Hermione couldn't hold back his laughter, he ate all the sandwiches on the table, leaving only a glass of pumpkin juice and an empty plate for her. "I'm leaving first, you know I have a lot of things to do." Zhang Su got up and left after finishing speaking, without giving Hermione a chance to ask him about the burning of his villa. After Zhang Su left the kitchen, he returned to the dormitory of the Eagle Academy, and was surrounded by a group of students from the Eagle Academy as expected. Chapter 325. The students of the Eagle Academy had learned from the Daily Prophet that Zhang Su's villa had been burned down by Death Eaters, so they were not surprised when they saw Zhang Su's early return from France. When Zhang Su wanted to inquire about the details, he found that everyone felt a little different about Zhang Su. At that time, everyone just thought that Zhang Su was in a bad mood, so they didn't care. The only student who cared was Luna. She followed Zhang Su to the boys' dormitory, but she came down with her head in her arms not long after. When Zhang Su left the common room not long after, Luna said to the students next to her, "I think there is something wrong with Zhang." A bystander asked curiously, "How do you know he has a problem?" "He doesn't use much force usually, but he used a lot of force today." Luna rubbed her head and said. Except for a few senior students who were snickering, the surrounding students were speechless. Everyone could tell that Zhang Su was in a bad mood just now. After all, no one would be in a good mood if their house was burned to ruins. After walking back to his professor's office, Zhang Su wrote several letters in a row, and then sent them out through OWL. It is not Zhang Su's style to not fight back after being beaten, but he still needs to do a good job of preparation before doing it. That's why Zhang Su's first letter was written to Rita Skeeter, asking her to help collect information on the Lestrange family's various industries. Lucius Malfoy's hint is very clear. This matter has nothing to do with Bellatrix Lestrange. Even if she is not the leader of this operation, she is also one of the key figures. Anyway, I want to find her for revenge. Definitely not bad. However, Bellatrix is a representative of the Die-Hard faction among the Death Eaters, and Lao Ma is one of the leaders of the Meritorious faction. If Lao Ma sells his teammates like this, besides protecting his son, there may be no Death Eaters fighting among themselves. Factors are inside. But Zhang Su is not afraid that this is the old horse who wants to kill with a knife. Even if Voldemort ordered the old horse to do this, Zhang Su will kill. Because regardless of whether the old horse borrowed a knife, Zhang Su was definitely going to kill someone. As for whether the culprit is Bellatrix, Zhang Su believes that he will get the answer tonight. During dinner, many friends from other colleges came to condolences after seeing Zhang Su's return, but they were persuaded by Zhang Su's dark face, and they left after a few words of meaning. When he walked out of the cafeteria after dinner, Zhang Su found Malfoy, who was walking towards the common room of Snake Yard. Zhang Su walked to Malfoy's side, put his arm around his shoulder, and whispered in his ear, "If I find out that this matter has something to do with your father, I don't mind tying you to a stone before sending you off. You go play with a giant squid. Then maybe Professor Binns can get a very suitable assistant for him." Then Zhang Su turned around and walked out of the castle regardless of his classmate Xioma, whose legs were so weak that he almost fell to the ground. Just as Zhang Su had just walked out of the castle, a voice behind him said to him, "This is not like you, Zhang. You don't seem like someone who would threaten your classmates." Zhang Su turned his head, glanced at the person walking behind him, and said, "Then, are you going to deduct my college points or remove my position as an acting professor, Mr. Senior Investigator?" Percy walked to Zhang Su's side, patted Zhang Su's shoulder, and said, "Go to the Three Broomsticks for a drink. I think the Pig's Head bar is more suitable." Zhang Su replied after squinting at him, "The loyal servant of the Minister of Magic and Dumbledore's young thugs conspired in the bar," and the headlines of tomorrow's Daily Prophet came out like this. In the past few months, while the popular reporter Rita Skeeter and the mysterious reporter Miranda Richardson have been scolding each other in the media, they have often given various hats and nicknames to others, from Lupin to Zhang Su to Percy. No one on both sides can escape. Seeing that she was obsessed with scolding her right hand with her left hand and never tired of it, Zhang Su worried that she would have a schizophrenia one day. Percy ignored Zhang Su's teasing of Miranda Richardson's nickname for himself, and just said to Zhang Su, "Mr. Minister, let me stabilize your mood." Then you write back to Mr. Minister, saying that my mood has stabilized to irritable. Zhang Su waved his hand and said. There was no talking all the way, until the two were about to walk near the Whomping Willow. Percy said, "My mother has two older brothers, Gideon Pruitt and Fabian Pruitt. As far as I can remember, they came to our house almost every weekend, and he would bring us a little gift every time he came. Bill, Charlie, Fred, George and I were very impressed with him. But when I was 5, my uncles were killed by Death Eaters. At that time, our whole family was immersed in extreme grief, except Ron, who was not very sensible at the time, and Ginny, who was just born. Fred and George, who were not yet 4 years old at that time, had already noticed that the atmosphere at home was not right. Since then, they have been playing pranks, trying to make the people and atmosphere around them happy. When Ron was 3 years old, he accidentally broke the toy broomstick that his uncles had given Fred. Later, Fred became angry and turned the teddy bear Ron was holding into a spider. At that time, the rest of us, the brothers, were very angry that Ron broke the toy that the uncles had given them back then, so we all watched from the sidelines and no one helped Ron. After Percy's story was finished, the two walked straight to the Whomping Willow without saying a word. Zhang Su glanced at Percy, then stopped the Whomping Willow, waved his back to Percy, and then got into the secret passage. Percy stood aside and watched Zhang Su get into the secret passage, and stayed there for a while, then turned and went back to the castle. At midnight, an owl flew out of the screaming shack, walked around the ruins of Zhang Su's villa for nearly half an hour, and landed in the center of the ruins after finding no one lying in wait. After changing from the southern owl back to human form, Zhang Su immediately walked to the living room of the previous house after clearing the charcoal and ashes on the ground with a magic wand. The original marble floor that was almost completely burnt into quicklime was exposed. Continuing to clean up the waste on the ground, Zhang Su found tonight's target, a large black metal box, under a large particularly thick marble floor. Zhang Su's villa is not an undefended house, where cats and dogs can break in. It's just that the entire villa has been burned down now, and there are basically no clues for the intruders to decipher the defensive spells, so they can only look for clues from the black box at the eye of the defensive spell array. Only Zhang Su knew about the existence of this black box, and he didn't even tell Fu Rong. If there is a device in this house that can monitor and record all the formations and camera operation records in the house in an all-round way, Zhang Su will be teamed up by Zhang Chu and Cedric the next day. Killed. After putting away the black box, Zhang Su returned to Hogwarts after recovering the scene. Just when Zhang Su walked into Hogsmeade, Zhang Su suddenly saw a familiar figure running towards him. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.